As a reminder, all members of council are obligated to declare a conflict of interest or pecuniary interest for section 133 of the Westminster Charter regarding any item on this agenda. Council Torson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to declare on 7.6.1 Northeast Area Structure Design. One of the bids involves one employer.
Thank you, Councillor. With that in mind, and due to the nature of those attending today, could I recommend that we move 7.6 to the agenda location right after 7.1 is completed. So 7.6 operations reports will come just before the city managers. Let's allow us to deal with that while we have full quorum. So I'll look for council's direction on the amended agenda. Council Buckingham.
That the amended agenda dated December 17, 2018 be approved.
Seconder. Council Torson. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. I'll look to council for item number 4 for approval of the direction on the previous minutes. Council Buckingham.
The regular council minutes dated November 26, 2018 be approved.
Seconder. Council Torson. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. Call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Is there any business arising from those minutes? Not seeing any. Moving on to public presentations and acknowledgements. I don't believe there's any public presentations today. Moving on to item number 7, to the city manager bylaws.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. To present bylaw 25, 2018, Facility Corporation repealing bylaw. I'll turn it over to the city clerk.
Thank you, City Manager. Your Worship, Council. The recommendation is that Council grant the second and third readings to bylaw 25-2018, the bylaw to repeal the Westminster Facilities Corporation. The Westminster Facilities Corporation was created in December 2010 after the dissolution of the Westminster Golf and Ball Club. In addition, bylaw 35-2010 was created authorizing the establishment of the current of the Westminster Facilities Corporation as a municipal body distinct in function and operation of the city of Westminster for the purpose of operating and managing a non-profit corporation. Bylaw 3-2012 was an amendment to bylaw 35-2010. In December 2017, Council approved the funding for the Westminster Corporation to hire a consultant to conduct a full operational review of the corporation. Health Systems Group of Calgary, Alberta was a successful bidder and presented their findings to in May 2018 at the regular council meeting. The Westminster Facilities Corporation reviewed the recommendations with the Health Systems Group operation and recommended the most financially responsible options. At the October 15, 2018 regular council meeting, Council made a motion to formally dissolve the Westminster Facilities Corporation effective December 31st, 2018, directed administration to contract food and beverage services, curling ice maintenance, and golf pro services out. In addition, Council instructed administration to bring the golf course turf management within the city of Westminster operations, and bylaw 25-2018 received first reading on November 26, 2018, and there have been no changes to the bylaw. This bylaw is just simply a matter to repeal the two outstanding bylaws as the corporation is dissolved through resolution.
Thank you, City Clerk. Questions or comments? Councilman Torson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to confirm, so at December 31st or January 1st, when the full dissolution happens, there's essentially a roll-up of that corporation into the city where anything owing to the city or owing from, they would get canceled out. And then essentially moving forward, all those assets that are sitting and all liabilities sitting within that corporation just get rolled into the city's books.
That's correct. Any outstanding deficits or assets at the time of dissolution become the city's.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to confirm that that was how it was working. just for members of the media or the public, I have the pleasure of being on this board from the time that Rick McDonald got here. And this is definitely a step in the right direction as far as, well, this is kind of an administrative step in moving this to something that I would say is a little bit more transparent. The old system, the financial statements, you couldn't exactly see what was happening because it was all buried in the city, which will be similar to how it is going to be now, only it's going to be a separate department where you can actually pull that information separately, and it's a little bit more, I think, handy to see what's going on, as well as, you know, the transactions in and out, who's paying for what. There was a lot of confusion around there that created some pretty large outstanding balances that were identified in the forensic audit that we had. So this cleans up a lot of that that we did, as well as really takes the vision of what the health systems group said and kind of finishes off some of those steps to get to the point where it can be more successful moving forward.
I guess my question, I believe, well, direct to the city manager, we can directly bring, there will be a financial reporting at the year end of 2018, so that as taxpayers will know what the golf course and the curling center costs to operate. It's not going to just disappear, so I think that was always a question in people's minds. By dissolving the corporation, will we have a financial report that will come available in the spring?
That's fair.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from council at this time? Not seeing any, I'll look to council for direction on bylaw 25-2018. Councilor Carson.
I move that council grant bylaw number 25-2018, being a bylaw to repeal the Lloydminster Facilities Corporation bylaws, second reading.
Seconder, Councilor Monroe. Any further questions, discussion? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councilor.
Keep it going. That council grant bylaw number 25-2018, being a bylaw to repeal the Lloydminster Facilities Corporation bylaws, third and final reading.
Seconder, Councilor Monroe. Any call, is there any further questions or comments before I call the final question? Not seeing any, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. City manager, move on to 7.1.2.
Thank you, Worship, to present bylaw 26-2018 manufactured homes bylaw. I'll ask Scott to bring this forward.
Thank you, Worship and Council. Subject matters, bylaw 26-2018, manufactured home assessment bylaw. The recommendations that council grant second reading of bylaw number 26-2018, manufactured home assessment bylaw, and council grant third reading to bylaw number 26-2018, manufactured home assessment bylaw. Administration is bringing forward a new bylaw to bring the assessment and taxation of manufactured homes into alignment with the Lloydminster Charter. Bylaw number 26-2018 received first reading on November 26, 2018, regular council meeting. After first reading, administration added the definition of designated officer to bylaw number 26-2018. The city of Lloydminster currently has a trailer court bylaw from 1968 governing the assessment and taxation of manufactured homes located within manufactured home parks. This bylaw was updated in 1980 and 2014 to update the fees, but no other updates have been made to it. The existing bylaw does not meet all requirements of the Lloydminster Charter. Currently, the city of Lloydminster charges a daily fee $2 per day for occupied manufactured homes. Manufactured home park owners collect these fees from the owners of the manufactured homes and remit it to the city monthly. However, there are some issues with collection under this current bylaw. Under the proposed bylaw, individual manufactured homes will be assessed, and there will be a minimum tax applied to each manufactured home as part of the property tax bylaw in accordance with Section 308 of the Lloydminster Charter. This tax will be levied to the owners of manufactured home parks each year, along with their annual tax notice for the land. The tax will be due the same time as regular property taxes, and penalties will apply in the same manner for land taxes. So option one is the council grant bylaw number 26-2018, manufactured home assessment bylaw, second and third reading. Or two, by council defeat, second and third reading of bylaw number 26-2018, manufactured home assessment bylaw. Or three, council direct administration to bring back further information. Budget implications, the collection of property taxes for manufactured homes is budgeted for annually. The new bylaw should ensure collection of these fees are more seamless. Administration does not expect the increased cost of manufactured homes unless there's substantial increase in assessed values of manufactured homes. The minimum tax will be equal to or less than the $2 per day currently being charged. Pass it back to you, Your Worship, for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Scott. Questions, comments from council? Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I wasn't here for the meeting when we did first reading, but I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. We still have the opportunity to set the fee at the time the mill rates are set, correct? This is not actually the point where the fee is set. This is just the point where we clean up the language to ensure that the manufactured home assessment bylaw ties into the charter, so that the language is all the same.
Thanks, Councilor Dozier, for the question. That's correct. We're going to do a set minimum will be set by councils around the mill rate bylaw. Just a little further too, we did send out emails and letters to the three trailer park owners. We only got one comment back from one owner that was just looking for clarification on whether this was replacing the current system or on top of it. And they were content once we explained to them.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Not seeing any, I'll look for council's recommendation, 7.1.2. Councilor Buckingham.
The council grants second reading of bylaw number 26-2018, manufactured homes assessment bylaw.
Seconder. Councilor Baker. Any further questions or comments? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councilor.
The council grant third and final reading to bylaw number 26-2018, manufactured homes assessment bylaw.
Seconder. Councilor Baker. Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Next one, this going to bring Councilor Fetterman, I believe, by telephone. Meeting.
Hello, Counselor?
Getting better. Can you hear us, Councilor? Can you hear us, Councilor?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
I can hear you now.
Yep, we can hear you. We'll try this version one more time here. Hello, Councilor, can you hear us? Councilor Fagner? We're getting a lot of feedback from you. Can you still hear us? Councilor Fagnan, can you hear us at all? Hello? Hello? Councilor?
Yes, sir.
There he is.
I can.
Perfect. We're working. Excellent. Technology is a wonderful thing when everything lines up. All right, Councilor, we're at agenda item 7.1.3, bylaw 27-2018. And we'll turn it to the city manager. Back to Scott.
Thank you, Your Worship. Subject matter is bylaw 27-2018, Assessment Review Board, following fees bylaw. Recommendations that council grant second reading to bylaw number 27-2018, Assessment Review Board, following fees bylaw, and that council grant third reading to bylaw number 27-2018, Assessment Review Board, following fees bylaw. Administration is bringing forward updates to the existing bylaw number 2-2006. Bylaw number 27-2018 received first reading from council November 26, 2018 council meeting. City of Lloydminster currently has a bylaw outlining assessment review board complaint fees governing only non-residential properties. This bylaw was introduced and passed in 2006. No other updates have been made to the fees since passing of this bylaw. The maximum fees are outlined in the table below from matters related to assessment complaint regulations, MRAC, AR 310-2009. These fees will be charged to the appeal is filed. Should the appeal assessment review board or municipal government board find in favor of the applicant, the fees will be refunded. This table just shows what the maximum amount under legislation to be charged. Administration has developed new fees based on the above maximum fees, as well as research into Alberta and Saskatchewan municipalities. So option one is the council grant bylaw number 27-2018, assessment board following fees bylaw second and third reading. Option two is council defeat second and third reading of bylaw number 27-2018. Or three, the council direct administration to bring back further information. Bylaw 27-2018 will repeal the previous appeal fee bylaw number 2-2006. I'll pass back to you, Your Worship, for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Scott. Questions or comments of Scott? Councilor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just to be clear, the table that you've got within this AR, those are the maximums that can be charged, set out by province?
That's correct. That's the maximum fees allowed to be charged on the RIMRAC.
Okay, and we're coming, under or well under in some cases on those fees.
That's correct.
As well as, somewhere comparable to the other places. It's kind of a mixed bag of what you're getting.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I think the important thing, thanks for bringing this forward, Scott, I think is to remind people that this fee could be refunded if they go through that stage, the assessment review board process. So I think that's what the intention is there for. It's an administrative function that does cost the city money to go through, and if the applicant is successful, that money will be refunded. So it's a zero cost to them at the end of the day if they are successful.
Yes, that's correct. And ultimately, our ultimate goal is to get people to contact us even before this full event will be filed, so we can actually review their files to ensure that we're correct before we have to go through these formal steps.
Excellent. I think that certainly people have questions about assessment. Engaging a dialogue might be further in the city. So,
Absolutely.
Councilor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, so to be clear, what we're saying is there's no fee up until the point that you actually file the paperwork for the appeal. Just because you call and ask questions and try and get some clarification on your property, making sure you've got the same amount of developed space as you've got within your assessment. At that point, there's no fee. It's only when you actually take the steps to file the paperwork to do the full appeal.
That would be correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before I turn to Councillor Fagin? If you can turn Councillor Fagin back on, and I'll ask him. Councillor Fagin, any questions or comments?
No, I agree with all that's been said, and I think it just prevents frivolous individuals coming forward if there's no fee. So, no, that's my only comment.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll look to Council for direction on bylaw 27-20-2018.
The council grants second reading to bylaw number 27-2018, the assessment review board filing fees bylaw.
Seconder. Councillor Monroe. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Fagin, any further comments?
No.
All right, all in favor? Opposed? Councillor Fagin, how do you vote?
In favor.
Carried. Moving Moving on to recommendation second, Councilor Gunn.
Council grant third and final reading of bylaw number 27-2018, the assessment review board filing fees bylaw.
Seconder, Councilor Monroe. Any further questions or comments? Councilor Fagin?
In favor.
Oh, sorry, I was just wondering if you had any comments before I call the question.
No comments.
All in favor? Opposed? How do you vote, Councilor Fagin?
In favor.
Carried. Thank you very much, Bob. Moving to the amended portion of the agenda to 7.6. Councilor stepping out. Get myself in order here myself. 7.6.1, the Northeast Area Structure Plan Award. City Manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. To discuss the Northeast Area Structure Plan, I'll call Terry Burke from Engineering and Sam forward. They caught me off guard, sorry. Terry was originally coming forward.
See Terry in the background, but we'll call him if he needs to get into trouble. There. Welcome, Sam.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. I'm here to present the recommendation of the Evaluation Committee to Council on the RFP for the Northeast Area Structure Plan. The recommendation is that Council award the Northeast ASP RFP to ISL Engineering Limited of Calgary, Alberta, in the amount of $190,198 plus GST, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign and seal all the necessary documents. In addition, that council approve a 5% contingency allowance in the amount of $9,509.90 to be funded through the approved 2018 capital budget. Now, the Northeast ASP the Northeast area of the city requires an ASP, and we have discussed that one, and the ASP is supposed to identify and address key land use, transportation, recreation, and servicing components that require coordination and detailed planning. It will establish a process that requires logical growth and sequencing of development within the area. Now, we've received a lot of comments from our neighbors about a number of areas within the city that we don't have an ASP for. This is one of the attempt of the city to close the loop and get that all done. City guidelines prescribe that any development or a parcel that is underdeveloped, that is a quarter section or more, will be preceded by the preparation of an ASP, and we do understand that in 2017, Council approved the policy for the city. This is a high-level statutory plan which defines and sets out policies for future land use, community servicing, regional transportation network, utility servicing, community open space, and environmental considerations, as well as staging and the phasing of development. Now, in December of 2017, Council approved the 2018 capital budget, which included the sum of $250,000 for the development of an area structure plan for the Northeast ASP of the city. The budget allocated includes one, developing the Northeast ASP, which is the major document that's coming from out of this, hiring a consultant to prepare the plan, and then determining and coordinating with key stakeholders, including the RMs and the county, to develop the plan. The subject site contains approximately 7 quarter sections of undeveloped land surrounded by industrial, commercial, residential, recreation, and institutional uses. It's divided on the east by Island of Britannia and bisected by, more or less, by 40th Avenue. This is a greenfield, or mainly a greenfield located west of Neely Lake and south of the landfill. Now, on September 14th, now the location actually is displayed for everyone to see. On September 14th, we sent out the RFP for this ASP to end on October 30th. And by October 30th, the city received 4 proposals from 4 different companies. Now, these proposals generally, when they come in, they're evaluated based on the standards that's provided in the RFP, which is what we have on the table there. That's one, there's a pass-fail component. That means any RFP we receive that does not fulfill those two conditions will not even be evaluated. We will evaluate these before them. They all scale through the pass-fail conditions. So now we move to the issue of fees. Now, the major criterion, at least for evaluation, is actually the fees, which takes 45% of the 100%. So we did that evaluation now. Then after that evaluation, we distributed our out to an evaluation committee to evaluate the rest of the project criteria. Now, when the evaluation was concluded, the result or the outcome generally was subjected to another layer of evaluation. That's with the executive manager coming in to take a look at how each proponent was scored, and then those ones were discussed prior to us preparing the report for council. Now, when we look at all the proposals, the scoring of the candidates and everything, we have the outcome is what we have in the table that's below that. We have 4 companies from 4 different locations. That's ISL of Calgary, has the highest, at least the cost, provided us with the highest cost. But after the scoring, they came up with 90.43% in the ranking, when the scoring rather, and then that becomes, that's just scored and became the first in our ranking. That's Greg McKenzie of Edmonton provided us with the lowest bid, but when we evaluated all the other components of the proposal, they came down to the second in the bid, and then we have Urban Systems from Saskatchewan, and then Stantec of Saskatchewan. Now, if we look at the difference between the first and the second, there is an enormous gap in terms of when the evaluation is not just simply just the financial component. There we had about 2 or 3 layers of waiting before it gets to website. The essence of any ASP is the quality of the proposal, and that quality is going to be dictated by the relevant resources that are going to be dedicated to that project, and again to the understanding of what we actually want. And in our evaluation, and that comes in the methodology. That's why if you look at the scoring for this, the methodology has 25%, which is next to the fees, and then the rest in terms of experience, those ones come with 10%. All of these ones were scored and then rated before we go to who actually we're going to be recommending to council. Now, like I said, an ASP requires that not only just the dedicated staff, but the depth of understanding of the company that's going to be coming to provide that one is such that when they come on in, we're going to be properly reassured that when they come in here, they will do a good job. So every single one of them are super excellent district consultants. We're not knocking on any one of them, but again, based on the proposal, the committee determined that ISL's proposal raised the highest in all of these proposals. So the options presented to council to award the Northeast ASP to ISL Engineering of Calgary Limited in the amount of 190, 198 plus GST, and that Mayor and City Clerk be authorized to sign and seal all the necessary documents. In addition, the council approved a 5% contingency allowance in the amount of $9,509.90 to be funded through the approved 2018 capital budget. The proponent has demonstrated due diligence, competence, skill level, and expertise as outlined in the RFP. The option is in alignment with the information provided to all proponents in the RFP. Second option is that council direct administration to bring forward more information prior to making a decision on awarding the contract, but this will result in a project delay. Now we've been getting more or less kind of a lot of push from our neighbor to the east. They want this thing to be done so that we can move ahead with the OCP amendment, which is going to be sometime after this one is concluded. The third option is the council direct administration to move forward with the Northeast ASB. This option will result in the city not meeting, or not to move forward rather, not to move forward with the Northeast ASB. Then this will result in the city not meeting the 2019 timelines of preparing the ASB and further delay in its review of the OCP, as I said, with our Saskatchewan neighbors. Now, that's the
Thank you, Sam. Questions, Councilor Monroe?
I appreciate the presentation, thank you. So obviously the evaluation criteria comes with ISL as the lead, so I appreciate that, and understanding of the project is the most important thing as well. But I'm just wondering, this phase 1 environmental site assessment will be required, and this cost is not part of the proposed budget. So what's the cost on that?
We don't know that yet, but we know that the city has retained a consultant to do that for us. So that will be part of what we, at least, you know, if we do hire one, that will be part of what we are going to be asking.
Was that in the 2018 budget?
Probably that's right. Yeah. The phase 1 environmental assessment is not a part of the 198, is
Right.
what make it very clear. So within that 250, we have allocated some money associated with this phase 1 environmental. And earlier this year, we acquired Solid Earth geotechnical company to do all of our geotechnical work within the city for 2018.
Right.
And once this work becomes identified with the winning proponent, we'll move forward with that project, as part of the project.
Okay, I'm just wondering, because the environmental impact assessment says that we're budgeting 50 for that out of this 250.
Yeah.
So what, no ballpark even on the phase 1 environmental assessment?
Probably around 20.
Around 20? So
Yeah.
we should hit
Yeah,
in that
we-
area, maybe
yeah.
slightly over, but,
I do believe we'll be around the 20 mark. Yeah.
okay.
And what the next steps of this will be, phase 1 will be just a kind of a tabletop analysis. And then from there, phase 2 may be required. And that's whether they see any indications of any environmental contaminations or something like that, like a past gas station or something like that. That may entice a phase 2, which will be a little more costly and will go down the road once it becomes apparent.
I guess the only reason that I was really asking is just that there is a significant price difference between ISL and GMAC. So if going with ISL, if we were going to go over that 250 with the 2 assessments, then it would make me question. But if we're still going to stay within that range, then
Yeah, we're still confident being underneath that budget, yeah.
perfect. Thanks.
Councilor Baker?
Thank you, Your Worship. Excuse me, I got a throat problem today. I see exactly what you're doing there, and I understand, gentlemen. But I have one concern that we have some national corporations up on that board. Most of them are national corporations. And for $2,000 or $3,000 of losing the bids, you know, the high bidder got the job. I guess my pre-qualification request would be get the pre-qualifications right, so when these fellows bid, they've got a chance to win. And I'm not sure they have under the system we're using now. Now, if you want to go out and handpick 2 or 3 of your favorite guys that you think don't want to do the work, and I appreciate that, I really do, from another world. But invite those 3 bidders and then let them fight it out. Because if I was the firm sitting at the other end of the line there, I'd say, what the heck's going on here? How bad are we? We're losing, you know, for 10 grand, we're losing a job. That's pretty competitive business. And I'm just wondering, we're cutting off our legs and arms here for down the road when we're not, if in fact somebody's not qualified, then they shouldn't be bidding. That's my opinion, so thank you very much.
Yeah. I can take this one. Based on this proposal, this is advertised out in the open public. All consulting firms has an ability to bid on these on this proposal. The city received 4 qualified bids from those 4 companies, but based on their methodologies, their understanding of the work, really the key thing was the methodology side of things, how they understood what we as a city and ultimately want out of this area structure plan review. And the other key component of that one is the stakeholder involvement. We know we have definitely stakeholders within the city, but we also have stakeholders on our government too, being our tenant. And that would be a key aspect of creating this area structure plan accordingly. And based on those two key principles is why ISL is being recommended at this point in time.
Mayor, just a subsequent question, then. You know, maybe that stuff should be in the call from the beginning and say, we want this, we want this, we want this, we want this. And if it's not there, they're checked out. I'm just worried down the road, who's going to be bidding to us if people that are coming in lower and lower aren't getting an opportunity to work.
And
Because if I was sitting there at the other end, I'd say, should we waste 20 hours or 50 hours of bid time on a job we haven't got any hope in basket of getting anyway? Because these city guys in Lloydminster, you know, this is the way you do it. I'm just asking the question. Because the low bid policy, if you're pre-qualified and you're low, you should get the job. If you're pre-qualified. That's all I have, thanks.
I know that that's one system at least of getting this done, so that at least the consultants who actually bid for it are really qualified for it. But in this though, we are actually we were specific in the RFP. So if you are not qualified based on the criteria that are listed in the RFP, generally they won't compute in their bid. And that's one area that we're able to screen out those who will come on in, not know anything about what we're doing, but again to the low ballers, and then it becomes an issue later on. That's why I said the four of them, they are top-notch, I would say, international kind of company, but again it comes down to the aspect of whether or not they understand what we want for the Northeast in terms of what we express in the RFP. And that's where, especially the component of the public engagement, have the fact that we need to engage with stakeholders, at least to ensure that this plan is not just the city's plan, but the plan for those who actually own the land there, and it becomes all important so that they can own it after the plan is already prepared. So that's already contained in the RFP. So when they provided their RFP to us, in looking at the pass-fail conditions, that we first of initially review every single one of them pass-fail.
Executive Manager Rodriguez.
I just wanted, I guess, to just to package up what Sam is saying. Again, we put out a package, and the bidders they know what the criteria are. They know what they have to bid on. They know what the expertise needs to be. So when we receive the bids back, it's a matter of actually, looking through and say who actually bid on what we were asking. Who has the best understanding of the criteria that we asked them to respond on. So that's always going to be why we have the subjectivity in here, to be able to say, okay, in this case, the situation was where we felt that one of the companies had better stakeholder engagement experience. The sub-consultants were a little bit stronger, and had more experience in these areas. So these were things that you wouldn't, you would ask for, that your sub-consultants and, be qualified. But the level of qualification is something that we would have to deliberate on once the request for proposals are received by us.
Councilor Baker, if I can add this, I have similar concerns that you have. Some of the weighting I've used and looked at this as we've gone through this last 2 years as council. When we're buying a physical piece of equipment or a structure, it's fairly easy cut and dried on that price factor. On the service side, you know we're going to end up with a report from someone. It's that service that builds that report. I had the same questions that you had. Are we being fair by not looking at a lower price? But based on what administration has talked about today, I appreciate your comments, Sam, and from that perspective, and Terry, regarding the different components by valuing the people, because that's really what we're valuing here. We put the administration put a higher value based on that expertise coming to the table, even though they're planners and they're a series of people. The team that I guess ISL's prepared, because that was exactly, they're $20,000 higher, in essence, almost 40% in a bid from that perspective. And it's the same token, I guess value is value, and if administration, based on their recommendation, saying there's the best value in spending the $190,000, I guess I'll go with that, because we do have the weighting. I think in a case like this is a good one where having the actual scores of how each one against 100% weighted out, because with ISL having the highest dollar value, they would have the lowest score, I believe, for the 45% of 19.1.3, whereas the other two components, they'd had to score very high, and the others would have been rated accordingly. So I'm a little gray, but in the same token, I do understand where you're at, saying that based on what you saw, that we haven't seen, and we appreciate you've sorted through those proposals, because I'm sure each proposal was quite lengthy, saying that way. I'm willing to accept it, but I think that is a question back to administration, maybe just a little more detail in the future on something like this one, because when you're leaving, $20,000 difference, and like I said, I hear what Councillor Baker's saying. Are we giving the best value for our taxpayers, and contractors are going to be looking at it, but this is a little bit of a tougher one, because if it was a piece of equipment and we were retaining other value, it'd be different, but it's challenging because we're taking the highest bid in the case rather than the middle bid or the lowest bid. Councillor Monroe.
Sorry, just to comment that, for the highest bid, is it going against the 250,000? Is that how do you come up with a percentage? Say, so 45% is the weight. How do you come up with the percentage of actually, so that's one got 45% and one got 30%? How do you differentiate that?
Now, and I know there's, I actually prepared a memo for council on this, but it didn't get to you on time. So it's just to explain point by point how each of them score, not only just on the fees, but in the other areas too. Now, the way the city's tenders process works, the company or the proposer with the lowest fee is scored the highest, is given the highest score. That's 45% straight off.
Okay.
Then every other proposer is now rated against that,
okay,
to see how they and when we look at that in our proposal. The highest score at least on that one goes to Greg McKenzie at 45, and ISL scored the lowest there with 40% in that area. So that's about 5% difference in between them, because at least based on the fees.
So is it like 1% for every 5,000, or what's like your actual?
It's mathematical.
It's mathematical.
It's based off the lowest, highest, or each one's evaluated against the lowest proposal.
Perfect.
And then a percentage times the 45.
Excellent. That's exactly what I wanted. The other ones make sense to me how they're calculated, but that.
And I know maybe later on we're going to be circulating that memo to you, because that will explain how we did everything at least to get to the final evaluation.
Perfect. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Baker.
Your Worship, my concern isn't whether we're $5,000 higher or lower. You're buying knowledge is what you're buying. You're not buying equipment, is like you say. My concern is down the road, some of these engineering firms might say, I don't want to bid to those guys, because this is how they do it. So where we really sit, we know what we're really what to do. And I think the onus lies in the person asking for the bid to get the right information to the bidder so they can meet the criteria of the project. Now, if it's just a proposal, I guess any number can be the right number. If it's a proposal, like bid proposal rather than a fixed bid based on fixed criteria. And that's all I'm asking. You should look at that, and we might have to spend a little more time at the early planning stages to get that right. And I'm sure that this team, the way you're organized now, will get there. I really do. But I just wouldn't want to see guys like, I know some of those companies, and they're good companies. They're just one as good as the other. In my mind, but that doesn't matter. Whether it's Stantec or Rubik Systems, I don't know the other one there. GMAC excellence, but I just know that there's some good companies out there, and I hope they're not being shortchanged, that's all. Thanks.
Executive Manager Don.
Thank you, Your Worship, and we see this in a lot of our projects. We do hire a lot of consultants. I really appreciate what you're saying, Councillor Baker. I agree with you. There's some fairly outstanding companies up on that board. When a proposal comes in, there's a scope of work that's requested, and the bidders are to provide, number one, who they're putting on the job from a staffing perspective, as well as understanding the project and the project scope. So there's lots of factors in that proposal submission from each of the proponents that needs to be evaluated at a deeper level than just at a cost base evaluation. So company A may put a staff together that has junior engineers, junior staff versus proponent B, who is putting the most senior staff on the project. So there are those evaluations that need to take place, and we do need to do that deeper evaluation, which the team has done in this case. And they're looking at providing what is the best value for the city, which is the team that provided the best proposal with the most skill and best understanding of the project to move forward with the project. And in this case, it costs an additional 20,000-ish less, and you are right, that is buying experience, but we've found in the past when we've gone the other way, it's cost us more in the long run because the staff didn't fully understand the project, and we had cost overruns because of that. So we do balance that, and we do our best to evaluate each of these proposals on an individual basis to make sure the right team is hired for the project.
Your Worship, just to end this, it's going along too far here, but if you have 3 or 4 engineering firms that qualify, and a good engineering firm, then they have an invitational tender, and then they're all qualified to bid the job, rather than throw it wide open. I don't know if you can do that or not under the rules, but anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Councillor, for your questions. Councillor Fagnan, did you have any questions or comments? Councillor Fagnan?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we've got you. Is there any questions or comments?
Oh, no, I just mentioned that all my concerns have been addressed. So we had a great discussion.
Great, thank you. With that, I'll look for direction from council on 7.6.1. Councillor Buckingham.
The council award the Northeast Area Structure Plan request for proposal to ISL Engineering Limited of Calgary, Alberta in the amount of $190,198 GST. The mayor and city clerks are authorized to sign and seal all necessary documents. In addition, the council approved a 5% contingency allowance in the amount of $9,509.90 to be funded for the approved 2018 capital budget.
Seconder? Good second. Thank you, Councillor Fagnan. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Fagnan, any future question or comment or further question?
No, none.
All right. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Fagnan, how do you vote?
In favor.
Carried. Thank you, gentlemen. Discussion. All right, city manager, I'll look to you for 7.6.2.
To present 7.6.2 retail sales and demolition director, I'll ask Roxanne to come forward.
Your Worship, Council.
Good afternoon, Roxanne.
Good afternoon. I have before you 2 applications that came across my desk. Both are in a direct control district. The recommendation of this report is that Council approve the retail sales application and the removal or demolition permit application for the location of 5201 46th Street, subject to the following conditions. A, the developer landowner shall provide to the city a letter of credit in the amount of 100% of the estimated cost of all landscaping, including but not limited to asphalt, sod, seed, concrete, curbing, etc. All parking and maneuvering areas must be hard surface with asphalt or concrete within 1 year following the demolition or removal of the garage. Shall require a separate permit application. A real property report is required to be submitted following the demolition of the garage. Development shall conform to Land Use Bylaw 5-2016 and all other federal, provincial, and municipal regulations, bylaws, standards, and policies that apply. Applicant must maintain the fence between the property and the residential district to the west. Should a new fence be required, consultation with the abutting property owner is encouraged. The background on this property is Bylaw 23-2018 and Bylaw 24-2018, being the redistricting from R1 to DC1, and the amendment to the Municipal Development Plan were adopted by Council on October 29th of 2018. The landowner has submitted applications for the development permit for the use of a retail store and the removal or demolition of the garage. The removal or demolition permit is to remove the garage located at the rear of the property, and in order to accommodate the 6 off-street parking stalls that are required for the patrons in accordance with and conforming with section 415 of the land use bylaw, being the parking section. Administration holds security for the demolition of the existing garage. The retail sales use conforms to land use bylaw 5-2016. For parking is dependent upon the additional stalls that the removal of the garage would provide. The lands are direct control, and administration advertised the applications in the local paper on November 8th. Referrals were mailed out to all landowners within 30 meters of the property. 1 response was received, and the items were not about planning related. Council has an opportunity to add, remove, or modify any or all of the recommendations in this report. Should these applications be approved by council, the decision will be advertised in the local paper. Residents will be given an opportunity to appeal the decision within 21 days. Should council not approve these applications or a portion thereof, the applicant has the ability to appeal this decision to the Municipal Government Board. The options for this are the council approve the retail sales application and removal of or demolition permit application for 5201 46th Street, subject to the following conditions. The developer landowner shall provide letter of credit in the amount of 100% of the estimated cost of all landscaping, including but not limited to asphalt, sod, seed, concrete, curbing, etc. Parking and maneuvering areas must be hard surface with asphalt or concrete within 1 year following the demolition or removal of the garage. Any signage required for the development does require a separate permit application. A real property report is required to be submitted following the demolition. Development shall conform to Land Use Bylaw 5-2016 and all other federal, provincial, municipal regulations, bylaw standards, and policies that apply. The applicant must maintain the fence between the commercial property and the residential property to the west. And should a new fence be required, consultation with the abutting property owner is encouraged. Or 2, the council request further information from administration or bring the request back at a subsequent council meeting. Or 3, council refuses the retail sales and the removal demolition permit for 5201 46th Street.
Thank you. Questions? Councilor Monroe.
Thanks, Roxanne. So I don't actually have a problem with the development permits or the demolition permit, but I'm just questioning the 21-day for anyone to appeal it. There's 2 holidays coming up. We're going to be working on a skeletal system. Is there appropriate means for anyone who does want to appeal it to actually have that process in place?
Because this is regulated through the Municipal Government Act, specifically with direct control, the appeals are subject to the Municipal Government Board making that decision.
Okay, so the appeal comes to us though?
Does not.
It does not come to us?
Goes to the Municipal Government Board.
Okay, and is that board going to be working Christmas hours? What kind of hours are they going to be working?
It's a provincial regulated body, so I can't honestly answer that. I would suspect they're closed, as most government facilities are for most of
For
next
me,
week.
it's just, if there's anything that we're asking the public for, whether it's this or anything, I think anyone that does have concerns needs to be able to utilize whatever resources
For sure.
are in place to be able to make their concerns heard. And I don't know that this, in the next 21 days, is the most appropriate time for anyone. People can be on holidays. Are we really giving the public an opportunity to be able to see that it's been passed? Even though we are advertising it in the paper, we have to also acknowledge that residents are going to be gone. Maybe they will miss that this actually happened. I know it is their responsibility, but at the same time, we also have a responsibility to make it as easy of access to get the knowledge out there. So that's my only question. Nothing in regards to their stuff. I just don't know that it's the appropriate time of the 21-day limit for.
We are also, yeah, I send councils, well, all decisions that are of a discretionary nature. The decision is also mailed physically to every landowner and placed in the paper. All the dates are from the date the ad is placed in the newspaper. Today, the likelihood of it being advertised this week is slim. It would be more reasonable to feel it will be advertised next week, which from today would give us almost a month.
Right.
Does that answer your question, Council?
It does. I just still have that question, like how time sensitive is for her if we waited until, if she had to wait another month. I mean, is it that time sensitive just to get the right catchment area? I don't think it's fair, no matter what we're presenting. I just don't know that it's fair to pass it today and then people could be gone for 3 weeks. We all know that there's been problems with Canada Post. They're playing catch up still. So even though they do get a letter in the mail, it may, with all their backup, you could get it the next day, but it might take 3. And I just don't know at this time of year that it's the right choice to have a 21-day, I don't know.
I think that I'll ask the city clerk to comment on the 21 days, and we may be able to propose something slightly different to the city clerk.
So the 21 days is spoken to in the Municipal Government Act, as this sort of falls under that because it's development. While council doesn't have the ability to shorten that time frame, they could lengthen that time frame and provide any proponent a longer period of time to appeal. So we can open that appeal period up.
I would be comfortable with that, even just by like an extra 7 days, just giving it with the holidays to take into account that, you know what, mail might not get out, people might be gone for a period of time. I'm completely comfortable with extending it, just so by even 7 to 14 days, just to give everybody the opportunity, if they do have any concerns, to be able to voice them.
Councilor Thorson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think they answered my question as to whether or not we had any control over the number of days, and it sounds like we have a little bit there. I think Councillor Monroe is on to something as far as just the timing of it. Just to be clear though, does this item, does this need to come back to us at the January meeting as well, or this is the only time we see it?
This would be the only time we see it, should it be approved.
Okay. My only other question was just on the process as far as, so let's say something doesn't get done in a year, we send a notice and a fine potentially if let's say the development doesn't occur the way someone had agreed to within this plan? Or how does that normally work? Just the process.
Right, okay, should they not adhere to the conditions set in the notice of decision, we would issue a notice of contravention, allowing them an appropriate amount of time to complete whatever items have not yet been satisfied. If within that time they do not, we would then have to issue a stop order, which means there could be no business operating within that time until such time as they've completed those outstanding items to the satisfaction of the city.
Okay. And then one other question just on the process of this as well. So they don't have to provide like a deposit to the city for all of these things. It's just a letter from some sort of financial institution saying, yes, they have the means to complete all of the things that they said they would do.
Right,
that's what the letter of credit is?
Yeah, the financial institution would set aside for the city whatever landscaping, deposit, security.
Okay.
would be reasonable to complete the paving and the curbing and that sort of a thing.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think, as far as I can see, other than the number of days being a potential issue as far as just where we're at today versus when things are actually open, I think it makes sense to start moving this along.
Okay, good. Councillor Buckingham and Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Worship. This may be digging a little bit, but I just wondered if there's anything in the MGA or anything about that the 21, is it 21 consecutive days or is it 21 business days? Because that has an effect on what we're doing here too.
21 it is considered 21 days. They're not restricted, so it's considered 21 consecutive days.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure because otherwise extending it is not worth it.
Right. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Richard. I think Councilman Monroe's observation is well accepted. I totally understand where she's coming from. At our next GPC meeting, which is in January, I have an item for the agenda, which I wasn't going to talk about today, but it's on the table now. And it's a new change to the Municipal Government Act. And under the Municipal Government Act in Saskatchewan, you don't have to advertise in the newspapers anymore. All you have to do is put it on your website sometime. Now, an interesting situation. There's 1 million people in Lloydminster Road, Calvin, to the north. And the RM of Merlin posted an ad in the North Battleford newspaper. How many people read the North Battleford newspaper? How would they find out? And I think that's when I wanted to get on the agenda because they don't think people, and I haven't thought it just lately, I've thought it for 20 years, at times when major changes are being made around their property. For example, you're in an R1 district, and now we got 6 and 7 people renting rooms in those buildings. I wouldn't say 6 or 7, but there's 6 or 7 vehicles there. I know you probably bought R1 property like other people, which means single family dwelling. But things are getting right out of control, in my mind, with some of these arrangements, and how the changes are made, I'm not sure. But they seem to be coming out in big time. But I will have that on the agenda for January. But I certainly agree with Councilor Monroe that even if we pass it, people should have the right to know. Right to know. We talk about transparency.
Point well taken, Councillor Baker. I think that from the perspective, then I guess basically whoever would like to make that motion after I address Councillor Fagman for his questions, I believe we do need to add a G to the motion if this motion is going to come forward that basically states we will give 28 days notice. So how would we word that, City Clerk? What's your recommendation?
My recommendation would be that the appeal period be open for however many days. That's prescriptive enough.
Your Worship, if I may?
Yes.
I don't want to make a motion and just throw stuff against the wall. I just think this one may be too late because it's gone through the process. And it's gone through the legal process.
It has, but we have that ability, Councillor, I believe, based on what I understand. We could add that to this just for this case because of the Christmas season that we're in to satisfy the recommendation or comments from Councillor Baker, yourself and Councillor Monroe, that I think we can. We can simply add this to one of it's a condition for ourselves, really what we're saying. And it's just stated that to meet the act, it's 21 days. What we're saying, we could say 30 days. And that would just give it a reasonable length of time to be advertised over this time and allow people to, and I understand from Roxanne that you were saying, correct me if I'm wrong, that people will be sent out letters surrounding the neighboring
Yes.
houses and businesses. So we will have that time, but I think giving it 30 days isn't a bad time at this time of year. It's, this would have happened in July, or you run into the same problem, but certainly this time of year, people tend to be maybe way more than others. But it is always a challenge. You brought up a good point that we can certainly have administration bring to the table, because I think that's been ongoing discussion for some time with the MGA and what they've done in over the discussions in Saskatchewan. Any other comments before I turn to Councillor Fagnan for his? Councillor Fagnan?
I think we're on the right track with the extra time there. I think it's transparent and it's fair to all concerned.
Any other comments? Did you have anything else, Councillor Fagnan?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. I'll look to council for direction. Councillor Terrorson.
I recommend that council approve the retail sales application and the removal or demolition permit application for 5210 46th Street, subject to the following conditions. A, the developer/landowner shall provide to the city a letter of credit in the amount of 100% of the estimated cost of all landscaping, including but not limited to asphalt, sod, seed, concrete, curbing, etc. B, all parking and maneuvering areas must be hard surfaced with asphalt or concrete within 1 year following demolition of the garage. C, any signage required for this development shall require a separate permit application. D, a real property report is required to be submitted following the demolition. E, development shall conform to Land Use Bylaw 5-2016 and all other federal, provincial, and municipal regulations, bylaws, standards, and policies that apply. F, applicants must maintain the fence between the property and the residential district to the west. Should a new fence be required, consultation with the abutting property owner is encouraged. And G, that the appeal period be set to 28 days.
Seconder?
I'll second that with it being changed to 5201, not 5210.
Is that what it said?
I double checked it there. It was wrong in the one spot.
So,
I'll accept that amendment.
thank you.
Sorry.
Any further comments or questions before I call for the question? Not seeing any. Councillor Fagnan, did you have any comments before I call for the question?
I do not.
All right, with that, I'll call. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Fagnan, how do you vote?
In favor.
Carried. Thank you very much, Ross. All right, returning back to our agenda and back to the order of 7.2, City Manager's Office. I'll let the City Manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. Presenting this today will be myself, and the item for discussion is the appointments to the housing authorities for Alberta and Saskatchewan. The recommendation today is that council approve the following appointments to the regional housing authorities. Number one, that council appoint Arlen Johnson and Herb Fleeger to the Lloydminster Region Housing Group. And number two, that council appoint Bilal Khan to the Saskatchewan Housing Corporation. The issue at hand today is that the Lloydminster Region Housing Group and the Saskatchewan Housing Corporation has requested council to appoint a representative to their boards. Some background. Housing authorities are responsible for selecting tenants and ensuring the tenant programs are administered fairly, efficiently, and according to the housing authority's directives. They're also responsible for the operation and maintenance of the properties. At this time, the city does not have any financial obligation or commitments to either of the housing authorities. So in this case, some of the units that might include are Fellowship Village behind the Lloydminster Mall and Hall's Home across this, adjacent here to the east of City Hall. Administration is in the process of reviewing procedures and developing a policy on board appointments. Past practice has been for the city to appoint members to the Saskatchewan Housing Corporation and the Lloydminster Region Housing Group. And administration recommends that this procedure continues this process until a policy is in place. So the recommendation or options for today, that council appoint Arlen Johnson and Herb Fleeger to the Lloydminster Region Housing Group, and that council appoint Bilal Khan to the Saskatchewan Housing Corporation, or that council requests administration to bring back further information on board appointments which would create delay in the approval of these appointments. And I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, City Manager. Any questions or comments? Councilor Monroe.
I'm assuming that these individuals have been contacted and they're in agreement with being appointed?
I've spoken to two for the Lloydminster Regional Housing Group from the Alberta side, and I believe the Housing Corporation on the Saskatchewan side proposed the following name to come forward for the Saskatchewan.
But we haven't actually spoken to that.
I've spoken to 2 out of 3. So, and like I say, it came through from the Housing Corporation that that's who they put forward. It's a little different format, as you can appreciate. Each province, Saskatchewan is an actual government agency where the housing group, I understand, follows a directive from the government, but it's not quite the same why they had approached myself and simply asked for a letter. And when I discussed it with administration, they felt it was best to bring it to council to that point. Councilor Torson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I understand we don't have a policy on this. I'm just curious as to what documents, if any, exist that kind of, is it within their bylaws that say that it needs to be a city council appointment, or some provincial document that says this, or there's nothing that speaks to it, so we're just carrying on until we get that part figured out?
There's nothing that legislatively requires us to make this appointment. It's been done in the past at this point, so we're continuing this practice until such time as we get a policy that addresses not only these appointments, but all board appointments.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Baker.
Your Worship, if I may, I'm not talking the Saskatchewan side now, but there's two parts where we're at this. Alberta and Saskatchewan. Can I talk about Alberta?
Certainly.
Lloyd Region Housing and Pioneer Lodge, the way the act is set up, Pioneer Lodge reports to Lloyd Region Housing. You may not know that, but that's true. All funding goes through Lloyd Region Housing through to Pioneer Lodge. But for years and years and years, the government wanted one agency, not two. And the Lloyd Region Housing figured if the guys over at Pioneer Lodge are doing a good job, we won't interfere, but they're in the loop. And in their legislation, you might check that, because I think it's important. Pioneer Lodge, it's supposed to be elected officials, because any losses on that organization falls back on your city. So I hope I got all that right.
I think you do, Councilor, but I think the city clerk has.
I have been corrected by my learned colleague in the back, as they say, ministerial order requires us to make it.
Okay, so for this case tonight, that'll be, you are, thank you, Councilor, and I think that just for everyone's awareness, I think Council's aware, but Councilor Diachuk does sit on the Pioneer Lodge Board of Directors, as does our other additional elected representatives from some neighboring municipalities, both rural and urban, that are serviced by the Pioneer Lodge, to ensure that we are fiscally responsible. They are fiscally responsible, and at the end of the day, we are responsible for Pioneer Lodge. In this case, because of the Alberta Act, we do have to appoint the two individuals to the Alberta side, and I believe the government of Saskatchewan has asked for an appointment from the city, and that's why we're covering all three names forward at this time. So, with that, is there any other questions or comments? Councilor Thorson.
My only question is if that is the case where there is a, let's say, org chart where the regional housing is above the Pioneer Lodge and we are accountable to the Pioneer Lodge, to me, that would mean we have as much interest having council representation on the Lloydminster Region Housing Group, if that's the case. Because there is guaranteed loans and things like that with Pioneer Lodge, as I understand it, where, you know, if that structure exists, we're equally as accountable to Lloydminster Region Housing Group. So it's something I think that we should look into, because it may be important to have a member of council on that, if that's the case.
Very well taken. I think that based on my knowledge, and we'll have the administration chase that down, Councilor, because we already have 5 elected council representatives on the Pioneer Lodge board, and we'll need to just clarify how that works up from there. But the actual board of directors that I understand, based on the membership that I'm aware of at Pioneer Lodge today, and it's too bad Councilor Diachuk isn't here to comment, but they are all elected officials for 5 adjoining the 5 municipalities, being Kitscoty, Paradise Valley, Marwayne, and the County of Vermilion River, and ourselves, I believe, are the representatives that form the board of directors that oversee the Pioneer Lodge at the end of the day. So we actually have the politicians at the level right where the money decisions do affect us. Even though if it does roll up, we'll have to confirm that with administration. Councilor Baker.
Just to help you out, Your Worship, for me, when, let's say, for example, not to say, Pioneer Lodge Board wanted to expand, and we had to borrow money, that's approved by all 5 municipalities ahead of time. they don't approve the loan. They bring the business report to the city and RMs and to get the approvals.
So, yeah, like a resolution of each council.
And if we need a guarantee, that's got to be voted on by the 5 municipalities ahead of time to guarantee that loan, just so you know.
Yeah. Any other questions? Councilor Fagin, any questions or comments?
No questions or comments.
Thank you. I'll look to council for direction on 7.2.1. Councilor Monroe.
The council approved the following appointments to the Regional Housing Authority. The council appoint Arlen Johnson and Herb Fleeger to the Lloydminster Region Housing Group, and the council appoint Mylan Khan to the Saskatchewan Housing Corporation.
Seconder. Councilor Buckingham. Any further questions or comments? Any other comments, Councilor Fagin?
Nothing.
All right, with that, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councilor Fagin, how do you vote?
In favor.
Carried. All right, on to 7.3, Office of the City Clerk. To the City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The item we have is the 2019 meeting schedule and governing procedure. The recommendation is the council approve the 2019 meeting schedule as presented. Additionally, that the 11th edition of Robert's Rules of Order newly revised be used by council and council committees if the Lloydminster Charter or the procedure bylaw are silent on the matter. Background is that the procedure bylaw requires council to establish the schedules for the upcoming year's council meetings before December 31st of each year. Amendments to the meeting schedule can be done by resolution at any future meeting. Administration presented council with a draft meeting schedule during the November 19th, 2018 Governance and Priorities Committee meeting. For feedback, changes made since that first draft are presented are all meeting dates that cannot be changed have been marked with additional lines. These meeting dates are required for presentation of the audited financial statements and the mill rate bylaw. April 22nd council meeting date has been moved to the April 23rd, and the additional Governance and Priorities Committee meeting was added on November 12th to follow the GPC meeting to be dedicated up to the budget. The options are that council approve the 2019 meeting schedule as presented. This aligns with the procedure bylaw requirement to have the meeting schedule approved prior to December 31st of each year. The council requests administration to bring back further information on the 2019 meeting schedule. This would delay the approval of the 2019 meeting schedule, which would make us not compliant with the procedure bylaw, as it would not be approved prior to December 31st. Your Worship.
Thank you, City Clerk. Questions, comments? I appreciate the city administration taking into account some of the requests from council and also indicating matters that are important to this council and be dealt with by council, be it the audited financial statements, setting the mill rate, and some things like that we did experience this past year. So thank you for that. Any other comments? Councilor Fagin, do you have any comments?
No comment.
Not seeing any, I'll ask for direction from the council. Councilor Monroe.
The council approved the 2019 meeting schedule as presented. This aligns with the procedures bylaws requirement to have a meeting schedule approved prior to December 31st of each year.
Seconder. Councilor Buckingham. Last call for any comments. Councilor Fagin, any comments?
Nothing.
All right, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councilor Fagin, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Carried. Moving on to 7.3.2, back to you, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. The item that you have before you, if you could just give me a second, because there will be a request for it to be adjusted just slightly. It was pointed out to me that committees were in wrong.
Okay.
I might point out that item 7, the community grants report, is the FCSS Community Advisory Board. And it would be accepted as that. We will move forward with the motion, and Councilman Swords with the motion. The item that we have before you is the 2019 Council Committee appointments and Deputy Mayor schedule. The recommendation is the Council approve the 2019 council committee appointments and 2019 deputy mayor schedule as amended. To provide council with the 2019 amended issues, to provide council with the 2019 committee appointments and 2019 deputy mayor schedule for approval. Procedure bylaw requires that prior to December 31st of each year, city council will establish a roster for committee appointments and a roster for deputy mayor for a 2-month period on a rotating basis. Amendments to the council committee appointments or deputy mayor schedule can be done by resolution at any future meeting. The options are that council approve the 2019 committee appointments and the 2019 deputy mayor schedule as amended, which would align with the procedure bylaw and allow for it to be done prior to December 31st this year. The other option is the council request administration bring back further information which will make it non-compliant with the procedure bylaw.
Thank you, City Clerk. Councilor Monroe.
Just to edit, the number 9 handyman board is now Board of City Connects. That name changed to replace it quite a while ago.
One more amendment? Councilor Sparrow.
Thank you, Your Worship. Overall, I think it looks good, and I think it's got a good kind of balance in terms of the number of hours and things like that. And I'm happy to see the library board's getting an upgrade this year. Really, really happy to see that they're getting a little better talent than they had the last few years.
Publicly noted.
But I was going to say, how often does the mayor miss the Chamber of Commerce one?
It has been hit and miss. It's been up to 3 times, and the chamber did appreciate the opportunity to have someone from City Council there. So, because of Councilor Monroe's involvement formerly with BID and her continued involvement with the DART, the chamber, I asked her if she would consider stepping in to carry the city's message to the Chamber of Commerce because of the relationship that exists between the city and the business community, and that is the most direct link outside these chambers with the broad scope of the business community, the vision we gave. So, if I will ask Councilor Monroe if she isn't available, then so be it. We have that chair at the board of directors table.
I was going to throw in maybe a last minute edit, just because Councilor Monroe's picking up the library board. I would consider being the fill-in rather than Councilor Monroe for those chamber ones and the rare occurrences where you can't make it. Is that agreeable? Unless you like doing it and really, well, of course you love doing it. I don't want you to say that you don't, but would you be agreeable to that? Councilor Monroe?
If you want it, that's fine.
If I'm being honest.
If you feel like you need to give more to the community, then absolutely. I'd be honored for you to take it.
That is an afternoon meeting.
Oh, that doesn't work for you. Either is fine.
Just like I said, just so you're aware.
Okay.
So, where are we? I guess let's deal with this first.
I can wait.
So I guess Councilor Monroe, the offer's been made. If you'd like to give it up, that's your choice. I'll leave it to you.
Okay, I'll think about it first.
Okay, thank you. Councilor
I think that's
Baker.
worship to tell me I'm okay to go.
Okay, I've got, sure, Councilor Baker.
Your worship, there's something with the chamber that I think we have to do. And it was tradition for years. We used to get a weekly report from the chamber. We get the chamber minutes, and it would tell us when the socials were, or
The various events that are going on.
and where they're at. Because all council members are welcome to those events, and administration, because we are members. And sometimes it's gone before I know it even happened. So Wendy can put that on our regular list.
Well,
And just machine gun it up to us whenever.
what I'll do is ask the chamber to actually add all of council.
Oh, yeah.
Ask them to add council members to their email list, because it is a simple email list that they maintain. So we can certainly ask the chamber to do that.
Yeah. And the second thing we should consider is the minutes from some of these meetings. we just don't get them. We don't know what's going on.
And I will make a point of,
And I know
I'd like to-
Michael, Councilor Michael would like that information too.
and I'll take that, thank you, because that's likely on me that I haven't ensured that.
Well, I don't know, there's going to be an easier way than you folks do it.
Well, I think Libby has access to those minutes as well, so I can ensure that we just add those to the Friday reports. I think.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Council, for raising that. Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. As a past president and a long-term member of the Chamber of Commerce, I know how much it's appreciated that everybody wants to be on that committee. So, may I propose that we do what you're suggesting, but leave both of their names on it? Would the Chamber be open to that? So you guys
Yeah, if you miss one,
Certainly, I think that I would invite any council member that wants to attend that meeting, if I'm there or not, so you know exactly the message that they're conveying back. I think it's, I don't think might make the room a little warmer than it usually is, but that's all right. That's a good thing, so we can add both councillors and any other councillor that, again, that would be perfectly fine. And whoever wants to wish to do that report, there's more than one council president, I'm not. They do ask for, I usually comment on what's recently happened at City Council or at GPC, just so that ensuring that the message does get through clearly, so.
Just as far as our appointments go, I would be fine to have both names listed as there as well.
Is that agreeable?
Yeah, no, that's good.
Perfect.
That board complements some of my other committees as well, so.
their bylaws say one voting member.
And just for council's information, I tend to not vote at any time on that board of records, even though I
I
am
never
appointed.
did either.
I just take it for our information because we don't, from the perspective there,
You can
Actions.
actually, council table vote the other way.
potentially have to put the other hat on, Councilor, you're right. So we'll note that as Councilor Thorson added as a second alternate. Any other amendments or adjustments required? Councilor Fagnan, any comments?
No, everything looks fine to me on that.
All right, thank you. With that then, I will ask for direction from council on the amended resolution.
Sorry, just one other question. Is it our responsibility as the appointee on that board to find out what the meetings are, or is it that board's responsibility to notify us?
We will be supplying this to the various boards so that they will know what the meeting. In the case of an alternate for myself, we'll try to get the minutes that out on a more regular basis, but if I'm unable to attend a meeting, I will indeed encourage the alternate to attend in my place.
Perfect, thanks.
Any other comments, Councilor Fagnan?
No, thanks, Stephanie, for picking up on the handy there.
Thank you. All right, with that, I'll look for direction from council on the amended resolution. Councilor Monroe.
That council approve the 2019 council committee appointments as amended and the 2019 deputy mayor schedule as presented.
Seconder. Councilor Buckingham. Any further questions or comments before I call for the question? Councilor Fagnan, anything else before I call for the question?
No.
All right, with that, all in favor? Opposed? Councilor Fagnan, how do you vote?
In favor.
Carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to 7.3.3. To the city manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. To present new property tax exemptions for nonprofit organizations, I'll ask Scott Perry to come forward.
Good afternoon. Subject matters, new property tax exemption for nonprofit organizations. Recommendations that council approve 2019 nonprofit property tax exemptions for the following properties for a 2-year period in accordance with the nonprofit organization property tax exemption policy. 5005 49 Avenue, parking lot, Lloydminster Sexual Assault Services Inc. 4721 49th Street, Lloydminster Air Cadet 186 Squadron Inc. 5213 57th Street, Lloydminster Lodge 2027, Royal Order of Moose. Administration seeking approval of the new 2019 non-profit property tax exemptions in order to enable the assessor to update the annual assessment roll. Council approved the non-profit organization property tax exemption policy at the October 30, 2017 council meeting to provide members of council and administration with a framework of assessing tax exemptions for property owned by non-profit organizations. Administration advertised the September 30th deadline of the local newspaper in accordance with the policy and received 4 new applications for exemption. Administration has reviewed the applications and determined that 3 of the applications fully meet the requirement of the nonprofit organization property tax exemption policy. The last application is being brought forward separately for decision. Administration is proposing to have these new applications approved for only a 2-year period so that it will be the same schedule for reapplication as the exemptions that were approved in January of 2018 tax year. There are currently 20 properties approved for January for the 2018 tax year for the maximum 3-year period. They will be required to reapply for the property tax exemption September 2020 for 2021 tax year. Administration has contacted all of them currently approved exemptions and confirmed that their nonprofit status remains intact and the property use has not changed. So option 1 is the council approved 2019 nonprofit property tax exemptions for the following properties for a 2-year period in accordance with the nonprofit organization property tax exemption policy. 5005 49 Ave, parking lot of Mr. Sexual Assault Services Inc. 4721 49th Street, Mr. Air Cadet 186 Squadron Inc. 5213 57th Street, Mr. Lodge 2027 Loyal Moose. Or 2, the council approved the 2019 nonprofit property tax exemptions for the following properties for a maximum 3-year period in accordance with the nonprofit organization property tax exemption policy. 5005 49 Ave, 4721 49th Street, 5213 57th Street. Or 3, the council instruct administration bring back further information on the 2019 property tax exemption for nonprofits. Budget implications: any properties that are approved for exemption will have the assessment code updated to be exempt on the assessment roll. Approval of all 3 exemptions will result in a decrease in the overall property tax revenue of approximately $10,368.95, including $7,310.74 for municipal levies, $3,058.21 in education levies, based on 2018 mill rates and assessments. Pass back to you, Your Worship, for questions or comments.
Thank you, Scott. Questions or comments? Councilor Torson.
Thank you, Worship. I just had a question around the parking lot one. So my assumption would be is this organization did everything they were required to do for the main building, but a parking lot was missed that was within their ownership or because they were registered to, kind of thing?
That's correct. This parking lot is made up of several titles on the Saskatchewan side, and therefore we're all assessed individually.
Okay.
And last year when they applied for exemption, they missed that one. So they're just doing some housekeeping this year picked up.
Are we aware of any others where things like that are an issue, where the main location was applied for, but the other potential locations were missed?
We're not, none of them brought forward at this point.
I had one other question, and this isn't necessarily about these applications either. What's the process as far as change in use during 2018? Because I'd imagine there's some kind of stub period to allow for the applications?
The policy that council passed last year around that only allows, after the September 30th deadline, it only allows them to just change of ownership of the property. So if they don't own a property now, when they buy it in 2019, they'll be allowed to apply for exemption under that policy.
For the 2019 year?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've spoken on this issue before, and I just want to make sure it said approximately, not approximately, it said 20 businesses or non-profits have applied for exemption. Did I got that right, Scott?
There was 20 that was approved by council for
Yeah.
2018 year.
I guess I asked the question, is there any really legitimate charities that have been getting the exemption but have forgot to apply this year?
And not that I'm aware of. We advertise as per the policy, and we've reached out to anyone that we currently had on file that had applied for previous years, and there was only 4 that come forward this year.
I guess as a service to our community, we may want to look at that quickly, and if somebody missed, remember they're volunteers. It's easy to criticize, but they're volunteers. And give them a call and say, hey guys, you better get a letter in there or else.
But we've already done that.
I know,
We've sent out letters, we've put newspaper articles. and
some
things.
fell through the cracks, as you know.
In previous years it has, yeah. We're trying everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen.
Certainly, I can appreciate that, Councillor. I think that it is, you're absolutely right, and I think our taxation group has, our assessment team has done that. And in some cases, there is that bonus backside, and hopefully everybody's got their paperwork completed and submitted, and these three caught up, and appreciate Scott, you bringing it forward for 2 years as the first recommendation, so we stay in sync, so that everybody gets in sort of that same route, because if this way the administration reaches out, they just get on the phone and make those contacts to the 24 or 27, whatever we end up with, and hopefully anyone else that's new that shows up will get that information as we continuously do. And I think that leads back to your comment, Councillor, about making sure it's communicated as best as we can. The newspaper is one that is still a used avenue, and I think we'll be discussing that next meeting, as you say, to make sure that we get it out in every way possible. Councillor Torson.
Thank you, Worship. So, in our last go of this last year, was it a 2-year cycle that we did for the first round that we did for the 2018 property tax exemptions? Was it a 2-year period or a 3-year
No, we
period?
approved a 3-year period. The reason we're requesting 2 years now is to bring them all in the same year, so we can hopefully bring this to council into a 3-year cycle.
I see. Yeah, I was gonna, because I didn't know the number of years, if it was 2 or 3. I think it would make a lot of sense for at least the sexual assault services to be on the same cycle as the other ones that they do, so they don't have to apply every year. The other ones, I guess, it doesn't really matter, but then there's the policy, does it allow for 3-year period or 2-year period all the same?
The maximum allowed is 3 years.
Okay.
So if we do those for 2 years, we'll be all on the same cycle for the ones we approved last year as well.
What's your preference?
I would prefer to see 2 years, because we can bring them all forward to council.
Okay. Yeah, it's a matter of managing our resources as a city as well. If we do a 2-year cycle, then it's going to require less resources, advertising, all that fun stuff for all these ones to make sure we catch them, make sure we call every single one, contact them. It just gives us our ability to know that we're doing them all in whatever year, rather than having some in 1 year, some in the other. It provides more opportunity for someone to get missed, and that's the last thing we want.
We do reach out to every organization every year, just to make sure that their use hasn't changed and they're still nonprofits and that they still are eligible for the nonprofit exemption.
Okay.
Any further questions or comments? Councillor Fagin, did you have any comments or questions?
No, I echoed your comments that you made, so no, nothing further.
Thank you. I'll look to council then for direction on 7.3.3. Councillor Torson.
Yeah, sure. The council approved the 2019 non-profit property tax exemptions for the following properties for a 2-year period in accordance with the non-profit organization property tax exemptions policy. 5005 49th Avenue parking lot, Lloydminster Sexual Assault Services, Inc. 4721 49th Street, Lloydminster Air Cadet 186 Squadron, Inc. 5213 57th Street, Lloydminster Lodge 2027 Loyal Order of Moose. This,
Thank you. Secondary. Councillor Monroe. Any further discussion or comments before I call for the question? Councillor Fagin, anything else to add before I call for the question?
Nothing further.
Thank you. With that, I'll call for it. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Fagin, how do you vote?
In favor.
Carried. All right, moving on to 7.3.4, and I believe that's yours as well, Scott. So thank you.
Subject matter is the Border City Métis Society property tax exemption application. This is the fourth one that we were just talking about, 3 and 4 just came forward. Recommendations that council approve a partial property tax exemption for the Border City Métis Society for a portion of the property located at 5009 48th Avenue, Lloydminster, Saskatchewan, that qualifies for exemption under a non-profit organization property tax exemption policy. Administration received a request for the property tax exemption from the Border City Métis Society of 5009 48th Avenue, Lloydminster, Saskatchewan. Council approved the non-profit organization property tax exemption policy at October 30th, 2017 regular council meeting. Administration advertised the September 30th deadline in the local newspaper in accordance with the policy and received 4 new applications for exemption, including one from the Border City Media Society. The other 3 applications were previously dealt with in a separate RFP as they met the policy and COPTER requirements. Preliminary review of the application of the Border City Media Society provided an initial determination that the property did not qualify for the exemption. However, the assessment team conducted further investigation into the property's uses and determined that the property could qualify for a partial exemption. Administration has several conversations with the organization to provide clarification on the property uses and the inclusiveness of the Aboriginal Head Start program, which operates on the main floor of the property. The policy and COPTER regulations were also reviewed, and administration obtained clarification from Alberta Municipal Affairs in regards to the intended interpretation of several items in the COPTER regulations, including the definition of restricted use. As a result of the foregoing, administration reached the following conclusions. 1, the property in its entirety would not meet the requirements of the tax exemption, and 2, the proportion of the main floor hall area which is utilized for programming could meet the requirements of the tax exemption. Administration, through a detailed investigation process, determined that the upstairs portion of the property at 5009 48th Avenue may meet the requirements to qualify for the tax exemption. This determination was based on the type and inclusiveness of the programming provided in that space. At this time, administration does not recommend approval for the downstairs portion of the building, as the hall is not currently rented out and the organization has not provided the appropriate rationale and proof that it would currently qualify for the exemption. Administration will advise the applicant that when the property is fully utilized, that its uses would be examined, and if appropriate, tax exemptions will be recommended pursuant to the current policy and its submission dates of those exemptions. So options are council approved partial property tax exemption for Border City Media Society for the portion of the property that could qualify for exemption under a nonprofit organization property tax policy. This will align with administration's interpretation of the policy and the COPTER regulations. Or 2, that council not approve any property tax exemption for Border City Media Society on the basis that the property use is determined to be restricted use. This option can also align with the policy and the COPTER's regulations depending on council's interpretation of restricted use. Or 3, that council instruct administration to bring back further information from the Border City Media Society. Legal reviews, administration contacted Alberta Municipal Affairs for clarification on intended interpretation of the COPTER regulations. And Lloyd Mr. Turner and policy 18-2017 govern the use of applications of the COPTER regulations. Budget implications is a decision of this exemption will have the assessment code updated for the assessment roll. Total taxes in this property in 2018 were $4,260.02, including $3,092.70 in municipal levies and $1,167.32 of education levies. I'll pass that to you, Your Worship, for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Scott. Questions or comments? Councilor Corson?
Thank you, Worship. I think confused in general by this one a little bit. So my understanding is that the upstairs is used for the activities of the not-for-profit, and the downstairs is used for something else?
The downstairs is not used at all at this time. So they're telling us that their future plans is to rent this out to people, and at that time we'd be able to look at the current use. Right now that area is not being used for the charitable and benevolent use of the community because it's vacant. And if they were to use it as a rental, as long as they roll that money back into the program, it would be considered exempt.
So even if they said this is just an open space that we could rent out, but they didn't, then it would be fine, even if they had no rentals, but they could rent it out.
We had many conversations with them, and they kept telling us it's vacant and going to be used for business.
I have another question around the COPTER part. So this may be a charter thing. Following COPTER, is that Saskatchewan regulation or Alberta regulation? Because this property is in Saskatchewan, we reference Alberta Municipal Affairs.
COPTER is Alberta regulations, but it falls under the assessment, and the assessments we use under the charter is Alberta side.
Okay, I'm just making sure that that's clear for me. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to say this is not ideal. I get why you would do that for a vacant property. Like we're saying they don't even have meetings down there, like board meetings don't happen in this space. It just seems like an odd technicality that you're
Again, that's,
throwing out. I don't like the idea of us moving the goalpost, and I feel like we're borderline moving the goalpost in this scenario. I understand they said we're not using it. You ask them repeatedly, they're saying they don't use it, and I don't want to apply a different set of rules to different groups, because other groups where they're not using the property, we have applied that standard to them. This is a little bit different because it's not like it's a vacant property, it's just the basement maybe is not good for anything, or they're not actually renting it out because they don't think there's a market for it. But I don't know, this is a weird one. It's a weird one.
I'd have to agree.
Comments, questions, anybody else?
Are we somewhat penalizing them, I guess, in a way, even though they're not using it and utilizing it? If they were utilizing it for programming, then they would be exempt from it, correct?
That's correct, and we gave them that information, and we continually asked them, you know, tell us what you're going to use it for, and they told us eventually it's going to become a rental hall available for weddings and things like that. So we told them, if you guys use it for that, as long as the money is rolled back into the Hit Start program, it would be exempt, and they never ever provided us with the information we needed to hear.
So they know about it, they
Yes,
know it's
sir.
only going to be partial exempt.
Absolutely.
Councilor Baker.
You do get into it, don't you? Your worship, I don't believe there's probably a non-profit organization in this city that doesn't lease, not lease, rent out some of their space from day to day, week to week, month to month, for something. I don't know that for a fact, but I find that different organizations come and go. So they come in and they have the kids have a little dance from another organization. Do we have to tax them? Like, surely we're getting, can't we be bigger into that? Because where do these kids go? I mean, they got a place to go. How many of these little buildings do we need when they sit empty 4 days out of 7 or 6 out of 7 for a while? And I just worry about that. And now that Ken Jonathan brought it up, I wonder if he's got his kinsman on that list. But you know what I mean? The old head. Every one of those buildings. Excuse me, I used the kinsman hall as just one example. Sometimes I'll have a dance there or something. Or somewhere over here they'll have a little bit of a Christmas concert. So is this getting far too complicated, too messy, or just a question?
No, and that's a good point, Councillor. So the administration has reached out, and it's, I guess the challenge is, and I agree with what the comments we've had around the table on this issue. It is, we hate to dive into the weeds because that's kind of where we're at, but at the same token, I guess that administration is wanting to make sure that it is cut and dried because they deal with this on a daily basis. If someone comes in and says, well, this is non-profit, profit, and from that perspective, and I think the answer, what I'm hearing from administration, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, is simply if they indicated any revenues would be put back into the program upstairs, this would be resolved. But they chose not to give us that answer. And I know that, so where is the money going? I guess that's, we're kind of, I don't know, we shouldn't be in the nonprofit business, which we're not in most cases, but in this case, for the taxation factor, I guess that's the question. So we either have to deem the building, we basically got three choices: partial, total, or not. That's really the options we have as council. We can deem that building as tax exempt based on our choice that we want to, based on who owns it and what they're doing upstairs. It's just the clarifying factor, and it's back to where do we put some responsibility on the people organizing, running the building? Because if all of a sudden tomorrow it becomes a for-profit rental hall that competes with other profit rental halls in the community that may or may not pay tax, it puts it into a different league. And I guess that's trying to ensure that the playing field is as fair as can be. And some back to the administration and to the administration of the building, they have to take some responsibility, I believe, for everything that we do, or they do as well. And it's too bad that we couldn't get this clarified, because I believe, Scott, can you tell us how many times you've had been back and forth with the Métis Society?
Yes, probably 10 times.
Okay, so yeah, there's been a lot of dialogue, but we just, somehow we're not connecting the dots. Councilor Thorson? Okay, Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. Scott, what kind of can of worms are we opening up here to get into a partial this or a partial that?
I think sorry, that's what cutting out there. I think our best avenue is to give them partial because it's clearly defined that in the capital regulations that it has to be used for the 60% of the time for benevolent use of the community, charitable use of the community. So if it's not being used at all, I think we're opening ourselves up to some properties that aren't being used. Last year we turned down several properties because they weren't being used. A lot of vacant land around owned by nonprofits that were turned away for nonprofit exemption. And as well as the other thing that's very clear is the restricted use property. So it has to be open to all people and it can't be charging membership fees to get in, other than a modest fee to get in. So, but if we give it 100% exemption, we're basically saying, I mean, again, it's council's decision, but we're basically saying to anybody else that we turned down last year, come on back. And I don't know if that's right or wrong, that's up to council to choose what they want to do.
Councilor Thorson. I don't get the council.
Thank you, Worship. One, I don't know that this opens the can of worms of we, change our mind on the rules. This is a weird one. And I'm going to be honest, I have a hard time believing that in this essentially a play school that it is, that there's not one kid who steps foot in the basement to kick a soccer ball or something any point in the year. And if it happens once, as far as I'm concerned, as part of a play school, it meets the definition. But it's, to me, it just, I honestly believe that there's not a full understanding of what you were asking. I just can't understand how this scenario would unroll. So I'm of the opinion of number 3, that council instructed administration to bring back further information on this and to have another conversation. Because I'm sure, under these circumstances, someone must not have a full grasp of what you're asking, because this building is, as far as I'm concerned, it's got one use, and the vacantness of the downstairs, I don't know. I just can't understand it. It just doesn't add up to me as to something, it's not the same as a vacant land where someone's just sitting on what's essentially no plans to build anything on, no plans of use. I think this is a little bit different from the way I'm reading into this. It doesn't make sense to me.
We do have other vacant buildings owned by nonprofits that are paying taxes because of this rule.
Okay.
Just to let you know.
Yep.
Councilor Baker.
One policy doesn't serve all. I've said it before and I'll say it as long as I'm here. You can't drop a policy that serves everybody. I don't care how good that is. You can't do that. It doesn't work. We have a situation that happened right in this council chamber in the last 2 months. What do you think just happened? Every organization, they've got a grant cut off from somebody, or didn't get money from somebody else, coming in with third-party ads. We give away over $1 million. So if we charge somebody here an extra $100 tax, they're going to be right back in this room to get that $100 back through third-party ads. Does that make any sense? Not to me, it doesn't. Like, it's non-profit, it's non-profit. You have to monitor them, that they're not abusing it. But is there a perfect policy? Never. And I think that you're creating yourself a lot of work and a lot of that frustration with the three-answer policy. There's the right policy, the wrong policy, and the political policy. So please think about that because, man, just, they'll be back here, mark my words. I'll put it up on the wall here for you.
This policy legislates the copyright regulation, which is legislation by the province of Alberta. So all we're doing is mirroring it in that policy from the city. So ultimately, the copyright legislation is what's guiding us through this process.
Whose policy?
The province of Alberta.
Guidelines.
The policy is ours. It was adapted through the copyright regulation, but ultimately, legislation of the province is what's guiding us.
I already talked about policy. I don't think it suits everything in every situation. But whatever, this is just,
So
you
guess
have to go and explain that to the public.
if council wanted to choose to do so, they can approve the 70% exemption and ask us to bring back on the basement if we get more information, or they can choose to defer to another. As long as we get it in the early part of January, we're okay.
So did we lose Councillor Fagan, correct?
Yes, we have.
Okay, so I'll look to council. Any further questions before I can ask for recommendation? Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Worship. You just said something, the early part of January.
First
We're
meeting.
not, yeah, the first meeting is not early in January, just,
Oh, isn't it?
no. And so if you need it for the first part of January, we have to do something today.
We need to get it before the assessment rolls around, which is, I think it's the middle of January, late January, before we
And
get that done.
we have to do
But
something.
there are options for corrections in the assessment roll, so we don't finalize the roll until the end of February. So even if it's a late meeting in January, probably it's not going
Because I think it's the 21st or 22nd, right?
Actually, it should be 28, potentially 28, either 14th or 28th. So, Councillor Thorson.
So before any motion's made, I just want to say I'm in favor of doing a partial exemption for now, so that at least we're most of the way there, regardless of what happens. But I would like, with 100% certainty, that this group is confirming that there is a restricted use where others are not able to use it, and 100% certainty that there is no use of the not-for-profit in that space whatsoever. Like, those are the two things that matter. I want 100% certainty that that is what they're saying, because I feel like there's a misunderstanding somewhere, because there's...
I feel like I already had that in correspondence, but we'll reach out to him again.
Because I can add to Councillor Thorson, I was at a meeting of the Métis Society in that basement in the last year, so it was used for a meeting. I know that from their organization. So.
They were using it as part of the school while they were renovating upstairs, but they're telling us for 19 there will be no use whatsoever. That's where the issue comes in.
That's where the issue comes in.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion? I'll look to council for direction on 7.3.4. Councillor Thorson.
The council approve a partial property tax exemption for the Border City Métis Society for the portion of property that could, am I reading from the right spot? Or is it different?
Nope.
Okay, sorry, I'll continue. That council approve a partial property tax exemption for the Border Métis Society for the portion of property that could qualify for exemption under the not-for-profit organization property tax exemptions policy. And so it is a different point that I'm reading at.
I'm going to go up to the top of this. I'm still going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. We're getting there. That's fine. Almost there. That's not everywhere else to be, do you?
Nope.
Okay, perfect. Got it. That council approve a partial property tax exemption for the Border City Métis Society for the portion of property located at 5009 48th Avenue, Lloydminster, Alberta, that qualifies for exemption under the not-for-profit organization property tax exemptions policy, and that administration bring back further information on the portion that is not eligible.
Seconded. Councillor Monroe. Any further discussion or comments? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
And if you try and see if you can bring Councillor Fagin back in. Just give Dan a moment to see if he can raise Councillor. Hello, Councillor. We lost you there, but we got you back.
Thank you very much. I just having some network problems down here.
Not a problem. Not a problem. We got you back. So, perfect. We'll carry on. We're at 7.3.5. Read signs, bear land lease agreement. To the city manager.
Thank you, Worship. To discuss 7.3.5, I'll ask Lisa Woodard to come forward.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and members of the City Council. I'm seeking direction on how to proceed with the Reed Signs Bearland lease agreement. Recommendation is that Council direct administration to enter a one-year lease agreement with Reed Signs for the current rate of 49 cents per square meter, effective January 1st, 2019, for part of 6301 50th Avenue, Lloydminster, Saskatchewan. Administration presented the Reed Signs Bearland Lease Information Report at the December 10th Governance and Priorities Committee meeting. Since 2007, City of Lloydminster has been leasing 2,359 square meters of bare land to Reed Signs located at part of 6301 50th Avenue, Lloydminster, Saskatchewan, for the purpose of a storage compound. The leasee completed leasehold improvements, including leveling, fencing, graveling to the land to bring it to the current leasable state that it is. Since 2012, the leasee has been paying an annual rate of $1,150, which is a rate of 49 cents per square meter. An external lease rate review was completed in October 2018 to determine the annual fair market rate of $5,664, being $2.40 per square meter. As a result, to lease at fair market, the leasee would see an increase of approximately 500% to the existing lease rate. The leasee has expressed interest in purchasing this land. This parcel of land will be reviewed in the upcoming Northeast Area Structure Plan in 2019 to determine if a sale is possible. The Area Structure Plan has the projected completion date of October 2019. The leasee has requested to lease the bare land for a duration of 1 year at the current rate until we receive further direction from the Area Structure Plan on if this land can be purchased. The Area Structure Plan is a high-level plan which defines and sets out policies for future land use, community services, regional transportation network, utility servicing, community open system, and environmental considerations, as well as the phasing of development. It is administration's recommendation to enter into a one-year lease agreement at the current rate until we receive further direction on the future of this land. In 2019, if the Area Structure Plan indicates that a sale of this land is not possible, the City will enter into negotiations with the leasee to enter a new lease agreement at market rate. Options are that Council direct administration to enter a one-year lease agreement with Reed Signs for the current rate of 49 cents per square meter, effective January 1st, 2019, for part of 6301 50th Avenue, Lloydminster, Saskatchewan. This would ensure that the proper agreement is in place for the land while administration completes the Area Structure Plan. The second option being that Council direct administration to enter into a one-year lease agreement at market rate, effective January 1st, 2019. Governance implications. According to the Lloydminster Charter, legislation states that land shall be leased at fair market rate, and Council decision is required to lease city land for less than market value. Budget implications. For 2019, administration budgeted lease revenue for the bare land at the same rate as 2018. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Questions or comments? Councilor Thorson.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, when we were presented this item at GPC, I had comments around the value of the lease being so far under fair value, and I understand that some of the increase in value is because of improvements made by the leaseholder. Nothing from what I said changed that day as far as that's what happens with leasehold improvements. At the end of your lease, that's the end of your lease, and you are, if there's any improvements on the property that you're getting benefits of, sometimes you still have to pay the fair value at the end of that. I don't think other developers would treat it any differently. I don't think any property owners would treat it any differently. Therefore, I don't see why the city should necessarily treat it any differently. And I think that it's appropriate for the city to actually charge the full fair value. It's not that, I don't want to spend too much time on it in a way because we're only talking about $4,000. But still, it's the principle of the issue as to whether we charge fair value or not. And I think we're running into scenarios more and more often where You know, I can understand even doing that a little bit for not-for-profits to not necessarily charge fair value. We've had that argument, and I can see the other side of the argument, but, you know, the city as a landowner, as a developer, and all those other things, I think it's totally appropriate to charge fair value.
Any other comments? Councilor Fagin, any comments? Did we lose you, Councilor Fagin? Hello, Councilor?
Councillor Fagin?
Sorry about that.
Oh, there he is. He's gone back. Any comments on the Reed Signs Bear lease?
Yeah, I was curious, who owns the land to the north of the compound?
The city.
The city does.
It is, okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I've gone up and taken a look there. I'm just worried, I certainly understand what Councilor Thorson is saying, but then again, I'm wondering if, you know, we haven't dropped the ball a little bit, and we don't have all our ducks in a row. You know, that this should have all been ready for the end of the lease, so to speak. So that would be my question. I know that they have done all the leasehold improvements. It makes sense for them to purchase it, but I'm just wondering if we're not prepared ourselves.
I believe that the area structure plan that was just approved earlier this meeting will address that. So that's one of the reasons why I believe the administration was reluctant to sell it, because once it's sold, we needed it back for something of infrastructure nature. We'd have to buy it back. So I think that was the hesitation from administration, and that's why they're proposing a one-year lease at the most once the area structure plan is completed. Because right behind that property, if you have your map there, excuse me, on Schedule B, is a major drainage channel within the city. It forms part of our stormwater management. So it is what I'd call a sensitive area, if I was in the planning side of the world, if I use the right terminology there.
Yeah, and that's what I'm referring to is the area structure plan.
Yeah.
And not be complete. I mean, it is a matter of time that it's going to be done. It was approved today. But I think that, you know, in all fairness, it would be a one-year extension seems to be a logical one fair thing to do.
And true, I think that's the two options we've been given, is a one-year extension, the two options from administration.
Yep, do that.
Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Richard. That land's basically totally undeveloped. Just a raw, holy piece of land. I mentioned 2 or 3 years ago, the water was right up to the back doors of the shops. There's a chance we can't even use that site if we get flooded out, or portions of it. I think for this year, just to get somebody to cut the grass and cut the buckbrush might be a benefit. When planning and development are done with what they're doing, and they get all the drainage channels and all those kinds of things figured out, where you're going to go, we might have half that for sale. Not all of it. I don't know that, but it's worthwhile to go have a look if you really want to see what's there. But the owner, pardon me, the folks that want to lease it, I mean, they're not prepared to spend a lot of money on it for a year. You know, so I'm on side to just lease it out the way it is, and you can roll with the dice for another year, and then when you know you're at it, you can let them know. That makes sense to me, totally makes sense.
Councilor Thorson.
Thank you, Worship. Do we have an idea, and a price would be a terrible thing to throw out in a public setting, but yeah, never mind. I'm not going to ask that question. I was going to say the value of the land roughly, but as much as I still feel that fair value is appropriate for all the arguments that I said, it is, the other hand, you know, to be devil's advocate to myself, is you don't want to, what's the phrase, cut off your nose to spite your face, because you could potentially be making someone angry and then they don't want to buy it later when it's available to buy. So you have to balance those two things, and I'm conscious of that. So I wonder if somewhere in between is probably more appropriate for me anyway. I guess we'll see if it wants to make a motion. I don't know.
Any other comments? Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I think it's just a fair trade-off. I mean, here we are. I mean, my thoughts on this over the weekend, we're waiting to see what we did with the area structure plan. Now we've approved that process of using the area structure plan. Until we have it, I think this is the best option to move forward on. You know, there's just too many variables, but a year from now there'll be way less than that for variables. So, you know, I think we go ahead this way for that reason.
And if we're not done, it might be 3 one-year leases.
Yeah, we're hoping we'll be done, Councilor. I think there's a,
It's not that simple.
No, it isn't, but in the same token, the area structure plan, there is a defined end date. Certainly, I didn't mention it during that discussion, but our neighbors to the east would like to see an area structure plan so that they can move forward with some recommendations themselves to us as neighbors. So
It looks to me we should like a big time water.
well, there's some things that are going to have to be taken into account, and that's why it wasn't mentioned as well, but we're having engineering and planning at the city work together on that area structure plan to ensure that nothing gets missed, because that is a key factor. Stormwater management, we know that very clearly is important to us. So with that discussion, I'll look to council for a recommendation. Councilor Buckingham.
The council direct administration entered into a one-year lease agreement with Reed Science with a current rate of 49 cents per square meter effective January 1st, 2019 for part of 6301 50th Avenue, Leominster, Saskatchewan.
Seconder. Councilor Baker. Any further questions or comments? Councilor Fagman, anything to add before we call for the motion vote?
Nothing further.
All right, all in favor? Opposed? Councilor Fagman, how do you vote?
In favor.
Carried. Moving on to the agenda, 7.5, Community Development Services. To the City Manager.
Thank you, Worship. To discuss draft sponsorship and advertising policy, I'll have Joanne Turcotte come forward.
Good afternoon, Your Worship Council.
Good afternoon.
Today I'm here to make the recommendation that Council approve policy number 130-01, the sponsorship and advertising policy. City of Lloydminster is updating the sponsorship and advertising policy. Background: on November 19, 2018, the Governance Priority Committee reviewed the attached draft policy and recommended that the policy come forward to Council for decision. Sponsorship and advertising policy was approved by Council in March of 2015. Administration conducted a review of the policy and identified some gaps, such as sponsorship and advertising related to tobacco and or cannabis, update to approvals for sponsorships to match the city's purchasing policy, and gift-in-kind sponsorship. The updated policy provides a framework for administration. It includes updated guidelines on pricing approvals, gift-in-kind sponsorship, allocation of sponsorship funds. Administration has drafted a new sponsorship and advertising policy that forms the principles and conditions under which the city will pursue inter-sponsorship and advertising agreements and set out the responsibilities and delegated authorities to ensure consistency. Options. Council approve policy number 130-01, the sponsorship and advertising policy. 2, the council will not approve the policy. 3, the council send the item back to administration for more information.
Thank you, Joel. Questions or comments regarding the policy that's been presented? Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. Thanks, Joel. I don't know if it applies under this policy, but I read through it a number of times just trying to make sure I didn't miss it. I don't think I did. Contra. Does Contra need to be included in this policy? Because we've had discussions over it in the past where the city should not be in the business of doing Contra deals with people. Now there's gift in kind and so on and so forth in there. But should this policy have a Contra provision in it?
So I'm just trying to remember, because there was a lot of discussion about Contra. Under our purchasing policy, procurement policy, sorry, So we're not allowed any contract. Don't believe there's any contract in here. It's just gift in kind.
Yeah, I was wondering, just to conform with everything else, if this shouldn't have some kind of wording about that as well, right? Because there are those that would offer up contra for these services. And if we have a policy that says that we're not doing that, then we're covered.
I'll look to executive manager's comment.
Yeah, thank you. It is on. Thank you, Your Worship. It is covered under the purchasing policy. That contra is not prohibited for any.
So does that supersede this then?
I would look to the city clerk to verify, but my understanding is yes.
I think that if it's not within this policy, then go to the next step, which would be it's not prohibited, it's prohibited by another policy. So yes, it would prohibit it. If Councilor would like us to add in that point about for clarity, that's still possible too.
I just wondered for ease of policy, if it was noted in there, there's zero question, nobody has to take the second step of going to another policy review. Just a thought.
Point well taken. Councilor Torres.
Thank you, Your Worship. Is that not what it's saying in 7.1, where it's referring to notwithstanding section 6.6 of the procurement and purchasing policy? They may agree to gift in kind sponsorship. So it is saying the contra basically could be allowed within that. Is it not? That's the way I read it, under specific circumstances.
Yeah, that's the...
The gift in kind, now that I read the gift in kind definition, there could be forms of contra, but this would supersede, so it's anything under 5,000 only for events or programs. So when we run into problems like Canada Day, or the program where we sort of paint fences and that kind of thing to get out, those deals with this would allow us to do that.
Is that clear enough, Councilor, or you're still, I see your phone is over, I'll give you a minute.
Yeah, please.
Councilor Baker.
I guess if a business was running it as a non-profit organization, pardon me, as a for-profit organization, that's one kind of negotiation. And the other is for non-profits. Non-profits usually don't have a lot of money. At the end of the day, what would you trade off? Somebody wants to rent the Civic Center for 3 days. What would you trade in kind? 3 rodeo blocks, or what would you trade? Like, what would the city need other than a snow block? Like, no, seriously, like, what would we trade? Can you help me? Because
Thank you, Your Worship. There's lots of different offers the city has received over the years with regards to, I'll give you X amount of product for my name on, a facility or whatever it might be. So that's kind of what we're trying to get away from. Now, when we look at our special events, Canada Days, those types of things, we do offer gift in kind in exchange for sponsorship opportunity to ensure that that day's event is ran successfully. So there's a fine line, and we did have a lot of conversation around that at an administration level before the policy came forward. If it's not clear, we're more than open to go back and try and take another revision to make sure that it is clear on what we do accept and what we don't.
Councilor Torres.
Thank you, Your Worship. I actually pulled up the purchasing policy real quick. And it just says in 6.6, shall not make any purchases using any form of contra or any form of exchange of products for services or vice versa. So then what this policy is saying is we can go around that within this policy under certain circumstances, like being under a certain dollar amount, or if it's RFP'd out. I agree there are circumstances where contra for events and programming and things like that that are appropriate, that you could allow some level of contra. So if you're having Canada Day celebrations and or let's say something cooler, some sort of fall fest, and McDonald's is providing $3,000 worth of coffee, and we want to say McDonald's is a sponsor, is it not appropriate for McDonald's to be a sponsor on that? So long as it's done on the up and up, and or if it's a larger dollar value and you want to RFP it out so that, you know, we're saying it's going to be $9,000 worth of coffee, so we're going to RFP it out, and either Tim Hortons or McDonald's or whoever can get that RFP and win the bid. I think it's appropriate in that scenario to have the ability to have sponsorship for providing of a good or service in those scenarios.
I think that's, if I may,
Certainly comes back in, yeah.
I think that is the difference, right? When you're talking about your coffee example, that is a gift in kind to receive a sponsorship and everything that we're going to do. We're going to put them on our program, we're going to put the banner up, we're going to use it in all of our media, so on and so forth. That is a gift in kind. But the contrary is a two-way street where an invoice is issued from both sides. Right? The city bills them $9,000 for coffee, and McDonald's bills us back and forth. That is the contra piece of it. Gift in kind is different. That's where I have the question.
Dan, if you, so how
Good
does
afternoon,
it
Your
make sense?
Worship and Council. So the way Councilor Thorson is kind of interpreting it, and the reasons that Executive Manager Stanley spoke to are the reasons why this is built in. And as you see, it is around city events, and there are various limits and approval processes. You'd be correct as well, I guess, and maybe that's the nomenclature around the contra and the gift in kind. But administration would still be documenting the gift in kind as if it were a contra at this point.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we were clear on it, because I do believe that we are, as a municipality, should not be going down that contra road, right? So I just wanted to make sure that this new policy fit within that, to make sure that it is transparent, that it is clear, and there's no circumventing it.
The way it's written, it is a notwithstanding clause of that. So in essence, it's a way to do it, but it's for very specific events. Outside of, as you've noted, the issuing of the invoices in return for all.
Does that answer your question, Councilor? Okay.
And just to be clear, that the only place that I think this may need a little maybe tweaking, I'm not sure, is kind of the direction that Councillor Buckingham's going in, and that's when you get into gift in kind services. Because gift in kind services are more challenging to put a valuation on. Not impossible, but it's more of a challenge. So I could say that, oh, I'm going to provide entertainment for this evening, but I'm going to do it for advertising, and there's some sort of contra $6,000 going back and forth. How do you do that valuation so that this person now, I don't know, maybe it's a terrible example, but services I think make it more of a challenge because of the valuation issue. That's it. I don't know, I'm going to be honest, I think working my way through it, I think it makes sense, and it makes sense to actually have the notwithstanding section for the reasons I stated.
I think it's a good stab at it. I think it's a great place to start. As we know with policy, and you've said it, Councilor Baker, numerous times, there are different levels of policy and where we need to be, but I think this will help give us some transparency and clearness to administration, which deals with this on a regular basis. And I'd rather see at least a policy. If we don't have it perfect the first time, we can always come back after a year and say, okay, here's some recommendations from administration based on their experiences, because they're going to hear about it and see it first. And I think that I feel comfortable enough giving it, move it forward to start with. And if we need some more refinement, because certainly it's been out for a few years, we're dealing with the issues that we are seeing in the community. Cannabis has identified, dealing with contract from the perspective to ensure that everything that happens at City Hall and the city's taxpayers' dollars is clearly transparent, open, and accountable. I think that's what this policy is intended to do, to provide administration with those directives. So as it sits, it's not perfect, I don't think, but I think it's close enough that we're going to be able to move forward with it, I believe, and at least start from that point. Councilor.
Thank you, Rick. Yeah, I just wanted to provide comment on the policy overall. I think it's great, and it provides kind of the boundaries for where the people working in sponsorship and advertising, as far as what they can and cannot do, and probably gives them a good amount of direction so that they can do their job without having things come up where it's, oh, I don't know, maybe we should take it to council, maybe we need to take it to ELT, maybe we need to, every time every little thing comes up. So it's good to have policies for that reason, is to deal with the everyday situations that are going to be coming up all the time, and I think this one does a good job of that. Thank you.
Councilor Baker.
Your worship, on the big end of the numbers here, you know, there's some awful big numbers in here. And I believe if we're going to lease one of our buildings, pick a number for 5 years, at $200,000, that should come back to you, the council. When you're dealing with those kind of, I know you got a breakdown here, but there's always been a perception that somebody got a deal. If it goes through council, then we're all a bad guy. But you don't, you know what I mean? That happens. I know what building is down now, some people think we made a bad deal. I don't, but some people do. So when you get into those big numbers, just to get your hair out of the hot water, just bring it to council and make your recommendation like you do every day. And let somebody else take the heat for you. That's my suggestion. When you get into the big long-term leases.
I think that,
Because there's a big political side connected to all of those buildings that, especially the buildings that you've got under your command there. There's a lot of history there. Thank you.
Second, Member Don.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. 6.5 does speak to that. Sponsorship that is outside the scope of the policy is sensitive in nature, or for all opportunities involving naming rights of the city shall have council approval.
Okay. So even though there's a dollar amount, especially naming rights.
I don't know if they're the right numbers.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sure that the city manager will help him through it like he always does. If he doesn't agree, he'll tell us.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that.
Any other comments, questions? Councilor Fagnan.
Good policy, good discussion, and nothing further that I can add.
Thank you, Councilor. I'll look to Council for direction on 7.5.1. Councilor Thorson.
I move that council approve policy number 130-01, the sponsorship and advertising policy.
Seconded. Seconded. Councilor Buckingham. Any further discussion or comments before I call for the question? Councilor Fagnan, anything else to add before I call for the question?
Nothing further.
Thank you. I'll call it. All in favor? Opposed? Councilor Fagnan, how do you vote?
In favor.
Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, moving on to 7.5.2, to City Manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. To present the Economic Development Strategic Plan, I'll ask Caitlin Ducheur to come forward.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Worship, Council. Today I ask that Council approve the Economic Development Strategic Plan. The City of Lloydminster is updating the Economic Development Strategic Plan. In 2016, the City of Lloydminster began a process of renewal in its economic development model in the City of within the City of Lloydminster. The draft Lloydminster Economic Strategic Plan was developed based on Council's administration deliberations, stakeholder input, comparative analysis, and dialogue with the economic development team. Economy is one of our 5 pillars in Council's 2017-2021 strategic plan. The Economic Development Strategic Plan comprises and provides an opportunity to achieve vitality, growth, and the development that stimulates and improves the quality of life in the environment. Through Economic Development Strategic Planning sessions in June and October of 2018, 19 stakeholder interviews in June and July 2018, and June to September research and in-depth comparative analysis examining the business costs, livability, and other economic resources. The economic development strategy was drafted. The process builds upon the 2015-2017 strategic plan to support administration in future operational planning. The draft economic strategic plan was presented to the Governance and Priorities Committee on November 19th for review and comment. Some suggestions brought forward included photo changes, vision statement suggestions. We went from going beyond borders to secure business opportunities to going beyond borders to secure economic opportunities. We added a key on page 9,
as well as some formatting and removal of some extra points. Any questions?
Questions or comments? Councilor Thorson.
I think it all looks great. The only other thing is it really doesn't matter. I think we changed it from going beyond borders to secure development opportunities. Didn't we?
I wrote economic.
Oh, no. Yeah, we changed it to economic, which
Yes.
is what I wanted, not
Yeah.
development.
Yeah.
Business would have been.
Oh, sorry, yes, it was development, sorry.
It was
yeah.
development opportunities
Yes,
changed to
it was.
economic opportunities, which sounded a little bit more like we just want to develop things, not necessarily. Yeah, anyway, I like it though. It's great, the whole thing's great. Just as great as it was last time. Carry on.
Any other comments? Cal, thank you very much for leading this charge through economic development. I think potential changes and things like that, I think that the intention, I want to put words that Councilor Dychuk isn't here, but I think it gives us a good spread with photos that have been added to add some diversity to our city. I appreciate seeing the pictures of the airport. It's an area of interest and certainly an economic driver for our community. That's what we're hearing and seeing. And certainly including the college in the photo directory or photos, I think is very important because it diversifies and shows our community because it is a leader from a business development potential as well. So I think it's well-rounded. I think, as anything after the first draft, we're ready to go to the printer, I believe, if that's council's wish. And, as more photos become available, because that seems to be able to tell a story as well. As we all know, photos add to the verbiage. Pictures worth 1,000 words, as they say. So I think we've got a great start. It represents our community well. Oil and gas, agriculture, economic development, all the pieces that are with it, and the drivers that go with it as well. So thank you for your efforts. Any other comments? Councilor Thorson.
Yeah, I'm taking another stab at this. That's terrible feedback that I gave the first time. All I said is it was great. But no, I really do think that this document in general, it really does provide a nice map of where we are at and where we want to get to. So if someone is considering making Lloydminster a home for their business or opportunity, this lets them know everything that we've got right now, and as well gives them some direction on where we would like to get to and whether or not they can fit within that model. So I think that this document does all those things, and I'm excited to see the potential results that come from it. So thank you, Alan.
Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. Thanks, Kyle. I agree with everything Councilor just said. I wondered if you could speak a little bit about, you can make the most beautiful document with all the best information in the world, and when it sits in your desk and doesn't go anywhere, what do you got, right? So I wondered if maybe this was the opportunity to speak in public about strategically where you might be placing this document, and then ideas for how we're going to get this document in the hands of potential people that see our fine city as a fit.
So I think with this document, it has been circulated to all the stakeholders who were involved in the process as a draft, and it will be circulated again as a final copy. So as economic development really relies on community members and those stakeholders involved, I would hope that they would share it as they see fit as well. And then I think further, we put it on our website. And then included in any investor packages. This piece is really more an internal document, and then marketing pieces developed based on what's in that package.
So on our website, a potential business could download this in a PDF format.
Absolutely, yeah. And that was the point of doing the overview piece instead of the full long document, was so that it was there and available to anyone who wished to see it.
Under the direction that we're going, I just think it's worth noting that the city and our economic development arm are not just creating a draft document to sit on a shelf somewhere. It's coming with potential, it's going to the right places, and it's the direction being taken is the right one. So thank you.
Any other comments? Councilor Fagman, any comments?
Well, a very important document. There's no question about it. And I think that there's been some great discussion on that. So I have really nothing further to add.
Thank you. I'll look to council for direction on 7.5.2 on the strategic plan. Councilor Buckingham.
Council approved the economic development strategic plan.
Seconder, Councillor Baker. Any further comments? Councillor Fagin, anything to add before I call for the question?
Nothing to add.
Thank you. With that, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Fagin, how do you vote?
In favor.
Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Captain. Moving on to agenda item 7.5.3.
Thank you, Your Worship, to present draft museum collections management policy, and I'll call Shauna forward. And also note that Shauna will be leaving us following the end of this year to with her and her family to move over to Chilliwack. So I want to thank her publicly for all the time that she's put at the Lloydminster Cultural Science Center and her service for the city.
Hopefully she's taking a draft for a strategic development plan with her at Chilliwack Ambassador.
Maybe we'll take us into the whole case. Have a shot of
Good afternoon, Your Worship, and members of council. I'm here to present the draft museum collections management policy. My council and the recommendation would be that council approve policy number 761-01, museum collections management policy. The City of Lloydminster requires a museum's collections management policy to guide decisions regarding our artifact collection. On December 10th, 2018, the Governance and Priorities Committee reviewed the attached draft policy number 761-01 and recommended that the policy come forward to council for decision. Lloydminster Cultural and Science Centre requires a formal policy to guide the facility concerning its collections. The draft museum collections management policy provides a framework for administration. The policy includes a collections mandate and guidelines on the types of collections the LCSC will keep, how artifacts will be documented, acquired, stored, appraised, conserved, loaned, and the process of artifact deaccession. The Museum Collections Management Policy ensures that the Lloydminster Cultural and Science Centre complies with professional standards and ethical guidelines as dictated by the Canadian Museums Association, the Museums Association of Saskatchewan, and the Museums Association of Alberta. The policy is designed to fulfill public trust responsibilities through collecting, documenting, and preserving our heritage collection. The options include number 1, the council approved policy number 761-01, the museum's collections management policy. Number 2, the council not approve policy number 761-01, the collections management policy. And number 3, that council send the item back to administration for more information.
Thank you, Sean. Questions or comments? Councillor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Were there any changes to this from the last draft that we saw? Because it was fantastic the first time we saw it. So I think it's a slam dunk in this case. So nothing from me. I'd be prepared to make the motion. I think we dealt with it pretty well at our GPC and had a lengthy conversation. I'd be surprised if there's no changes and we all like what we saw last time around. I will move that council approve policy number 76-01, the museum collections management policy.
I'll ask for a second, but first I'll ask for Councillor Fagin. Did you have any comments, Councillor, before we went to the motion?
None at all. Great document.
Thank you. Seconder to the motion.
Can I just add it?
Could you speak? Certainly.
Can I just have to read the motion with the proper policy number?
What?
Just to run into the bus on it.
Well, okay, I'm going to read the same page. We'll see what happens. I move that council approve policy number 761-01, the museum collections management policy.
And I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Buckingham. We're getting close to Christmas. Thank you. All right, with that, Councillor Baker.
Just a question now. You just bought yourself a big job, Emily. This project has been on the docket off and on in some form for a long time in this city. And I'm talking like probably 30 or 40 years ago. And if you can figure out what's over at that museum and you can get it all organized, I salute you, because it's unbelievable. And you won't look.
Sounds like some
good luck. I think Sean brought our whole team with it. in support of this.
I'm going to confess, some of those words I don't even know what they mean. Thank you.
I think there has been a lot of work done, and Shauna, thank you for bringing this policy forward, because I think it helps the entire council, administration, and the community understand where we're going. Because when you simply float along, as they say, and nothing guides you, you kind of move back and forth, maybe from ditch to ditch. Now at least we see the center line, and I think we see an outside line, and hopefully we'll go down that line. With that, we have a motion. Councillor Fagin, is there anything you have to add before we call for the question? Do we still have you, Councillor?
Yeah, nothing further.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, I will call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor, how do you vote?
In favor.
Carried. Shauna, let me say as well at this point, thank you on behalf of City Council for your efforts at the museum and leading the charge of the Boyd Culture and Science Center to get that right, and leading the staff there. I know you're going to be missed by them, and you're going to be missed by the city. So all the best to you and your family and your future endeavors. And we'd love to have you take a few economic development brochures along and show the fine folks of British Columbia that we are a great place to invest. And we hope to have you back in the future.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to 7.5.4, the city manager.
Thank you, Worship. To discuss the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund, I'll ask James to come forward.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you. Before you is a request for decision regarding the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund for stormwater management facility improvements, and this is for the full funding application. So the recommendation is that Council approve administration proceed with executing and submitting the full Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund application, including all associated paperwork associated with the $50 to $55 million project scenario, or scenario number 1, threshold, and agrees to the potential city will administer contributions for the full duration of the agreement between 2018 and 2028. The issue is, in order to assist with the completion of the upgrades noted within the 2015 Stormwater Master Plan, additional sources of funding were identified by administration. The contributions under DMAF will be used to complete a portion, not all, of these stormwater upgrades throughout the city of Lloydminster. Now we'll move on to some background. In May 2018, the federal government launched the DMAF to help cities and communities protect themselves from natural disasters such as flooding, storms, erosion, earthquakes, and wildfires. On July 31st, 2018, administration submitted an expression of interest and received an invitation on October 12th, 2018 to submit a full DMAF application. The full DMAF application is due for submission on January 11th, 2019. Within the 2015 Stormwater Master Plan, there were a total of 9 system improvements recommended. 2 of them are currently underway. Within the expression of interest, 7 of the 9 improvements were included, and those were the Hill Industrial Park, West Lloydminster and Central Business District, Larson Grove, Colonial Park and Southridge, Wallace Field, Steel Heights, and College Park areas. Due to the location of a number of the proposed improvements, the following complexities and risks should be noted. Existing development, as these are all upgrades to the existing system. Project phasing due to the magnitude and construction extents of the improvements. Private property and access agreements and crossing agreements. Existing municipal and franchise utility conflicts and crossings. Railway crossings and permit processes. Increased scope of work to rehabilitate other municipal infrastructure such as water mains, sanitary mains, and surface works. Unknown final budget, as the costs provided are high-level estimates and detailed design is not yet being completed. Municipal funding requirements for a prolonged period of time. And then if additional funding is required due to project complexities, costs incurred outside of the original project scope are typically the responsibility of the municipality and not included within the funding scenario. And the DMAF funding program is up to 40%, not necessarily guaranteed the 40%. Within the 2015 master plan, the following estimated costs were provided, including a 50% contingency, and that can be seen in Figure 1. These values, including the 50% contingency, were used within the expression of interest and, if successful, in our full application. Administration presented the DMAF application at the December 10th, 2018 Governance and Priorities Committee meeting, and the committee directed administration to decrease the project listing and bring the item forward to a future council meeting for decision. So we have a couple options. Option number 1, that council approve administration proceed with executing and submitting the full DMAF application, including all associated paperwork associated with the $50 to $55 million project scenario, which is scenario number 1, threshold, and agrees to the potential City of Lloydminster contributions for the full duration of the agreement between 2018 and 2028. The second option is that council approve administration proceed with executing and submitting the full DMAF application, including all associated paperwork associated with the $30 to $35 million project scenario, which is scenario number 2, threshold, and agrees to the potential funding to the potential City of Lloydminster contribution for the full duration of the agreement between 2018 and 2028. And the third option, that council instruct administration to not proceed with the full DMAF application at this time. So we'll move on to the budget and financial implications. Due to the 10-year project life, the City of Lloydminster would be required to provide funding obligations for a prolonged period. If additional funding sources cannot be identified and accessed to offset the city's financial contribution, so we've come up with a few scenarios, and those were attached at the back. Administration has reviewed the proposed improvements and the anticipated project costs and have settled on 2 scenarios. These 2 scenarios were also in accordance with Council's request at the December 10th GPC meeting. Scenario number 1 is a $50 to $55 million project threshold, with scenario number 2 being a $30 to $35 million project threshold. Scenario number 1 consists of completing the West Lloydminster and Central Business District and Colonial Park and South Ridge improvements. Combining the 2015 Stormwater Master Plan estimated costs and an inflation rate of 3% per year, the final anticipated project value increased to $53.9 million. Of this anticipated total project value, 60% would be deemed the City of Lloydminster's contribution, totaling $32.8 million. Potential funding sources for scenario number 1 would include $16.6 million coming from annual capital budget asks, $9.8 million coming from borrowing, with the remaining $5.8 million coming from additional grant funding. The user fees collected from the stormwater utility operation reserves will be used to cover the debenture payments, totaling $11.5 million over the 10 years. The maximum annual capital budget asked over the 10-year period would be $2.2 million. And potential sources of additional grant funding include the MSI, or the Municipal Sustainability Initiative, and/or the Alberta and Saskatchewan gas tax. Now, the Alberta and Saskatchewan gas tax would be part of the 40, as they are a federal program as well. Scenario number 2 consists of completing the West Lloydminster and Central Business District and Wallace Field improvements. Combining the 2015 Stormwater Master Plan estimated costs and an inflation rate of 3% per year, the final anticipated project value increased to $32.6 million. Of this anticipated total project value, 60% would be deemed the City of Lloydminster's contribution, totaling $19.5 million. Potential funding sources for scenario number 2 would include $9.9 million coming from annual capital budget asks, and the remaining $9.6 million coming from borrowing. The user fees collected from the stormwater utility operation reserves will be used to cover the debenture payments, totaling $11.2 million over the 10 years. The maximum annual capital budget asked over the 10-year period would be $2 million. No additional grant funding sources would be used. And just to bring some clarity to the final lines of both those scenarios, the capital budget asks will be part of the annual capital budget allocation. It is anticipated that no more than $2.2 million will be allocated on an annual basis. The user fees to cover the debenture payments would be derived from stormwater utility operations reserves. I turn it back over to the Mayor and Council for any questions.
Thank you, James. Questions or comments? Councilor Torres?
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, as I said during GPC, I love the idea of putting in an application, getting any kind of grant money and being able to get more done on a smaller, we'll say local dollar would be fantastic. I had a question around our debt limit and our ability to take on over this period another $9.8 million in debt on top of, we'll just go out there and make an assumption of the wastewater treatment plant coming online in the next, we'll say 3 years, and that being an additional $30 million debt. So we're talking about adding $40 million debt over the next 3 years. What does that do to our debt limit?
If you will recall, thanks for the question, but if you recall when we did the backup work for your voice sessions, we had a graph in there that had 75%, that we want to stay under the 75% threshold. So if we were to borrow 30 million, I know we did the buyout for 40 million for the wastewater treatment plant, and so by keeping this under 10 million, if we were to borrow 30 million for the wastewater treatment plant, we would stay under that 75% debt limit threshold on either one of these scenarios.
Do we know how close we get? I want to say it's like close to 67, 70% if I remember the number right. Does that sound about right?
It's under the 70, I think it's 68%.
Yeah. Which would limit your ability to do much else. And then you get a challenge with this being, I guess it depends on the length of the borrowing. We're saying 10 years. Your debt servicing could be challenged by that, so we would have to arrange our debt so that our debt servicing, that we have to make payments on it as well. I have another question around what we do as far as, so for taxes right now, is it kind of a split similar to that for what we're doing on any given year, that there's approximately $2 million coming from taxes that are going towards stormwater right now? Or would that have to be new funds on a new project?
I'll take a stab at it. Thank you, Councillor Forsman. I believe right now we pull in between $2 and $2.5 million of stormwater utilities for the reserve. We would be looking to put about $1.5 million of this to this program, and then the rather $500,000 of the remainder of that would be put to operations.
So then you have to make up the difference for any given year for the city's portion with this taxes line, right? That's what the tax column is in the demonstration?
Yes.
So then that would be an additional $2 million that would come out of the capital budget, which just could mean a matter of juggling priorities for what's in there. But still something to consider, that that's $2 million that we're earmarking every year, roughly $2 million every year for the next 10 years if we went with option 1. Which is fine. I'm just making sure that, this is I understand that a lot of work has gone into this, but at the same time, it's a tough one because you're making a rather large commitment and there's debt implications and property tax implications that come with it. That, if I could have another 6 months, I don't know if it would be enough time, but at the same time, it's just a challenge to kind of pick it out right away. The only other thing that I would say is, on all of this, we're making an assumption that the 40% max is what we're actually going to get. If that ends up being 30% instead, that's another $3 million that we need to cover through property taxes one way or another over that period, all the same. So that part for me is a level of risk that we're taking, and from my understanding, we're being held to actually spend this amount, otherwise we don't get our return, or is there a threshold that we actually have to spend in each of those given years? Can we spread it out differently? I don't know how those things work as to whether or not we can actually afford to do what we're saying that we're going to do in this program.
I'll bring up Lauren to assist with that question.
While Lauren's coming up, I can clarify, that within this year's budget, we're around, I think, between 3.5 and 4 million, so it would be consistent with what we're doing, what we're currently doing. The one thing I do want to note is under the MSI part, the MSI is only committed until 2022, to my understanding from the provincial government, so there is a bit of a level of risk there on that 650,000 that we've got identified in scenario one. So I'm assuming that there'll be some kind of funding there, but we're only guaranteed on the MSI up until 2020. I think it's 21 or 22. I think it's 22.
So the grant is done on a payment claim basis, so we will be submitting receipts as to when we do want to be paid.
Okay. So just to follow up, so then on that, any time or any year within the 10-year period, if we spend on one of these eligible projects, we submit our receipts, we get X percentage back that's eligible.
Correct.
Okay.
Councilor Baker.
Your Worship, 2-3 years ago, whenever it was, the stormwater management fee was brought into play in the city. And I forget the number, it raises a year. Can you help me out? Because I don't have it in front of me.
1.2.
It is in your worksheet. It's $2 million a year. And we are indicating that part of those funds will go towards the debenture payments. So we've included that in our spreadsheet.
Debenture on a wastewater treatment plant.
On the storm management, on this.
Okay. I just don't have this file in front of me. The question I have is, shovels in the ground, sort of the way everybody talks these days. Are we 3 years away, 2 years away? In your mind, 4 years away?
Thank you for your question, Councilor Baker. So within the scenario and funding options worksheet attached to the RFP, we've started it in the year 2020 so that we can get through 2019 doing preparation, design, permitting process work, and then in 2020 we would actually start construction.
Okay, there's more to this report. We need another debate on this somewhere down the road. It says there we need 50 to 55 million or 30 to 35 million, depending which project we pick. Now, there's several projects here, and I don't know which one's more important than the other. I think they all are. It's one of our biggest challenges in this place is stormwater.
Yes.
There's no question. So, if we apply, and I'm not sure what we're applying for, how much, but if you applied for the small package and you got awarded that package, how many years have you got to put it in the ground? Like you do phase 1, phase 2, phase, you can't do it all in 1 year. Like do we have 10 years, 5 years? Am I missing some years on it?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. It's a 10-year grant program. So this is funding, the program is a 10-year program to complete whatever project we apply for. When we presented this at GPC, the original presentation was based on, I believe, $60 million worth of projects. $67 million worth of projects. Through that conversation, Council had asked us to look at an option where we would apply for a lesser value. We went back and evaluated that, and that's why there's two options in front of you. So we could move down this process under a $30 million or $30 to $35 million project or a $50 to $55 million project. We feel we can execute both. The minimum requirement is a $20 million capital project as per the grant funding requirement. So that's what we're looking at.
Okay, well, just my final question is, out of that $2 million a year from storm management, stormwater management fee that we charge, in our regular operational, probably capital budget, stormwater, how much we got in there besides this? Did you see it 3 million?
Yeah, this year we're roughly between, without having the exact numbers, somewhere between 3.5 to 4 million in capital infrastructure improvements from a stormwater perspective.
Is that per annum?
Pardon?
Per year?
I think it's
Well,
going up
it's this year,
this
yeah.
year.
Yeah.
It's a little less, Councillor, I think this year.
Yeah.
It's a little less, Councillor, I think we've seen, since this council got elected, we've dealt with most of the Edmonds Neely control structures, has come to repair, and then we've done some of the work, money allocated for some of the ditches, but I think that based on going back to, if I can go back to 2016, we were presented by administration at that time saying there was a $58 million deficit then in the stormwater, the whole stormwater process, and this is really reconfirming that. It's actually more than 58 million. It continues to grow as the years pile on. So I think that the comment I was going to add to this for everybody's information, I did notice this morning in the news articles that I get that the city of Hamilton has applied for $61 million. This just came to their city council, and they've proposed $61 million worth of upgrades that they're seeking funding for. So, you know, we're right in the ballpark to what people are looking at. And as I read through the background information again, we're going to see applications, I'm sure, but at the same token, there's not a big window here. January 11th, if administration hasn't been sharp on their pencils, people are going to miss this, and this stands a good chance for us. The other side is it's a 10-year program for the federal government that goes into election this coming fall. So there's a lot of pieces in play here, and I guess that my biggest concern is, and I think it's kind of depending on what we get for a commitment, as long as we spend, if they approve us and we spend $20 million, they will match us or provide the grant money. But if we run out of money after $25 million because they only give us 5%, then I guess we go home and say thank you very much. Because what's the government going to do, sue us on this one? This isn't like the wastewater treatment plant, so that's legislation. This is simply a grant format. I thought about this a great deal over the weekend. I think that if we don't go for it, we miss the opportunity, and we see when they come back, and then we negotiate, because this is, there's a little bit of room here. And I think that the government of the day, whatever that may be, the current government or a new government, we can sit down and say, listen, there's so much we can do, and the more you help us, the more we can accomplish. You tell us where you want to go with it. This is the step we need to take to get there, but I know, do we go for the bigger amount or the smaller amount?
Your Worship, in my mind, it's no different than when administration recommended that every year we change so many blocks of sewer and water. Whether it was enough or not, that doesn't matter. But every year you change 2-3 blocks or whatever you're doing. And that's got to, in my mind, stay.
Absolutely.
Or you just get further. And this program, if you can, I mean, there's a lot of work to do, but it sounds like, but put that thing together over 20 years. It'll be a great asset to the city. It's not going to get any rougher than it is right now. It's flat. You know that. So good for you guys. And I don't know how we're going to finance this. I guess we got to work through that one. I mean, I see what you're saying. There's other things too to consider. But there's some areas in the city that are very subject to you guys know.
Yeah, just to verify, this is a 10-year program, so we would have to execute it within a 10-year timeframe.
Yeah, by the way, but I think what Councilor's saying, we're already doing some work now, so it'll just drive our work to be a little more defined, and hopefully have some grant money to work with at the end of the day. Councilor Thorson.
Two other questions. One just on the MSI, and you likely stated this earlier in the report, and I forget already, but why is the MSI not included in scenario 2? Or is it? Like we've excluded it as a funding option. At least it looks that way.
Thank you for the question. What I tried to do was stay under that 75% threshold. So I chose to do borrowing under 10 million for both programs. So when we did the bigger program for the 50 to 55 million, I needed another revenue source. So we would have to dedicate up to 650,000 from a grant program to support that, to keep us under that 10 million threshold.
Oh, okay, so what we're saying is we would be able to use this 650,000 of MSI funding if it still exists in other areas under scenario 2, on other eligible projects. It would still potentially exist elsewhere.
And reduce the debenture amount?
Or reduce the debenture and use the MSI funding towards this project. So it's just one other area of potential funding. Okay, that would make sense. That was one thing that confused me when I read it the first time. just as far as the debt overall being relatively similar, even though the total project values were considerably different. That's why you did that. Yeah, my last question is actually for our grants coordinator, I think, Lauren, and that is, if we apply for the full amount, and let's just look at this from a practical scenario of how things actually work. We set a budget every year and we say we're going to spend this much money on stormwater. That process still continues all the same, but we could potentially lose out on some of those funds because this simply sets the maximum amount that we can apply for. We don't actually have to spend every amount that we're allocated, correct?
Thank you for your question. I mean, we still have the contribution agreement to sign if we were successful with the funding program, which means we would be committed to the project and spending the amount of funds we will receive. If we did not spend the funds that we were awarded, we would have to return them to the funding program.
Okay, so we are tied to whatever the amount is. So if you apply for the full amount, you end up, we can only handle, increasing property taxes X amount, we can only take so much debt. You have to take more debt because you have to do more project work so that you have enough eligible funds spent so that you can still get your percentage return. Okay. Although, in the practical situation, you just spend enough so that you get your amounts and give me I don't know what the right answer is. I'm going to be honest. This is a struggle for me. I need someone to tell me what to do because part of me wants to go for it, but I also understand that we're really tying our hands over the next several years. We are making a commitment, a very long-term commitment, and regardless of what's happening in the economy, regardless of what's happening, yes, it's nice to have matching dollars. Fantastic to have matching dollars. We never get enough matching dollars. But we also have to spend, a lot of cheddar every year. I don't know. Somebody help me.
I'm going to take city manager first.
If I can clarify the debt, how the debt limit is calculated. Sorry. So it's based on our revenues. So as our revenues increase, it's 1.5 times our revenue, and that's excluding the capital grants. So over a 10-year period, our limit for debt will increase. So we gave you these figures based on the audited financial statements for 2017 already. I know that is for 2018, we've made $2 million in debt payments. So I think our debt limit is $116 million. 17's debt was $37 million. In 18, that's gone down to 35, I believe. So there's a reduction already in there. As we made those debt payments, our debt will decrease.
Well, and as we raise property taxes in the last year by what we'll say is a reasonably large margin, that will increase your revenue, which therefore increases your debt limit. So, all right. I like the free money, I think, more than I like having to pay for it all and getting more done. But I don't know. That's just where I'm at.
Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. I think that we're moving to a new direction and we're looking at doing multi-year budgeting and figuring things out. I think that for myself, for sure, I've heard, what are you guys doing? When are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? This, to me, lays out a plan that we can take right to anybody in the city and say, here's the money, here's where it's spending, here's the things we're doing, it's laid out over this time, we're getting matching grants. To me, it actually lays a pretty solid roadmap for what it is that we have to do going forward. And I think from what people are asking of me and are telling me in public, they're looking for a solid roadmap of things to do, costs to be expected, projects that are going to be done, when's my area going to be done, right? This, to me, answers that. And I think in the end, yes, it's a tough one to start out with, but I do think it's the right thing to do.
If I can ask this question, administration. By us approving this, we have not signed the final contract yet, correct?
We have not. There is still a contribution agreement for us to sign.
So there is still one more get out of jail free card,
yes.
As if I can use that Turner. City Manager?
Yeah, this doesn't even mean we're approved. This means we're going to the next application phase. That's all this says today. So there's still a process. We may not even receive the full amount of which, one of the questions we're asking, and we have asked them, is if they give us less than the 40% of our project, are we allowed to bring the project level down to match that, to get it up to, their contribution up to 40%, and I believe we haven't got an answer on that yet. So that was a question we were looking for late last week. So we'll still seek that answer, but there are a couple of factors still within that we have to get clarification on.
So I think that's the important thing to come away with today, is we're not making a final commitment. This is to move the project, move the steps forward, but there's still an opportunity for us if we feel that we can't load this onto the community, our financial situation does not permit us to it. But I think we need to move it forward enough to see where we go with it for the next step. Because if by chance we do the full 40% commitment, then that means our council needs to take a hard look at it, and that would be my suggestion to go to the full extent of 50 million plus for the application at least. And let's see where the chips fall and what comes back from the federal government, because we know nothing is simple with the federal government, and we'll get started on that one. So my recommendation is we move forward with the 50 million and see where we go, and the larger amount, and then we'll see what comes out of all of it. This is the process. Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. That was the other thing, I could be totally wrong in saying this, I'll look for some direction. This puts all of these projects on someone's radar, and it shows the scope of the things that need to be done in this city. So I think that, in any case, is not a bad thing, because if the provincial federal government can get just one glimpse at the things that are coming up, and we tell them this is a portion of things that we need to actually have done, this is the situation we're in, I don't think having this on the radar early on is a bad thing in any way, shape, or form. You know what we're dealing with the wastewater treatment plant. This starts the process of getting projects to the forefront. And I think that's an important thing to consider here too.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%. Any other comments? Councillor Fagnan, do you have anything to add? Councillor, well, we may have lost him. Councillor Fagnan, are you still with us?
You bet.
Perfect. Anything questions or comments you'd like to add?
Yeah, many comments by all our council members there. I initially was looking at this, I was looking to err a little bit more on the cautious side. But at the end of the day, I think that if we do the research and that if we don't have to sign that document, if we don't like what we get, that would be the turning point for myself. I think that if we're able, if we've got that escape, then I'm all for it.
Well, I appreciate that. Don't worry, it's on my radar too. So I think that appreciate those comments. With that, I'll look to the council for direction on 7.5.4. Councilor Buckingham.
Move that council approve administration proceed with executing and submitting the full disaster mitigation and adaptation fund DMAF application, including all associated paperwork associated with the $50 to $55 million project scenario and scenario 1 threshold, and agrees to the potential city of Lloydminster contributions for the full duration of the agreement 2018 to 2028.
Seconder, Councilor Baker. Any further discussion or comments before I call for the question? Anything else to add, Councilor Fagnan?
Nothing further.
All right, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councilor Fagnan, how do you vote?
In favor.
Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to 7.5.5, City Manager.
To present the Lloydminster Golf Pro Shop Services contract awarding, I'll ask Joe Walker to come forward.
Good afternoon again.
Good afternoon again, Joe.
I'm here to recommend that council approve the Golf Pro Shop Services contract for the Lloydminster Golf and Curling Center to be awarded to Martin Whelan for a 5-year term with an option to renew the contract for an additional 3 years at the cost of year 1, $225,000, second year, $230,625, year 3, $236,400, year 4, $242,300, and year 5, $248,500. In addition, that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign and seal the necessary documents. As the October 15th, 2018 regular council meeting, council approved the dissolution of the Lloydminster Facilities Corporation as of December 31st, 2018, and directed administration to contract food and beverage services, curling ice maintenance, and golf pro shop services out. In addition, council instructed administration to bring golf course turf management within the city of Lloydminster operations. Administration issued a request for proposal on October 24th, 2018 to secure a golf pro shop service contractor for a 5-year term. The RFP was posted on the City of Lloydminster's bid and tenders webpage, local newspaper, social media, PGA of Canada website, PGA of Alberta and Saskatchewan websites. The RFP closed on November 26, 2018, with one submission being received. Administration reviewed the proposal for action based on criteria set below, and I'll let you guys look at that. Based on the review, as shown in the table below, Marty Whedon scored the following, and once again it's on the table there. Administration is recommending that Marty Whedon be awarded the contract for Golf Pro Shop Services at the Lloydminster Golf and Curling Center facility commencing February 15, 2019 for a 5-year term with an option to renew the contract for additional 3 years. I won't say the prices again, but they are listed there. In addition, the contract will allow the golf professional to use the course free of charge and provide provisions of increased expenses should a wage increase or should a revenue increase to the point where the contractor would require additional staff. Option, the council approve the contract for the Golf Pro services for the Lloydminster Golf and Curling Center be awarded to Marty Whedon for a 5-year term with an option to renew the contract for additional 3 years at a cost of, once again, year 1, $225,000, year 2, $230,625, year 3, $236,400, year 4, $242,300, and year 5, $248,500. In addition, that mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign and seal all necessary documents. Option 2, the council requests additional information from administration that would result in delays in the contract for golf shop services in the Lloydminster Golf and Curling Center. I just want to mention, under budget, we do have a few things, but I do want to mention that the administration's been working on this budget. There has been some increases and deletions of budgets. Looking at a few things, approving this would mean an increase of budget of just under $42,000, and those come from multiple things. So, working with how our admin salaries are, 50% at LGCC, making sure that was in the budget. Removing marketing funds, we found out that there was a double budget there, so deletion there. Obviously, the pro shop contract fees, this is a little bit more than originally budgeted for. And the increase of food and beverage contract, we gained more revenue there than originally expected.
Thank you, Joel. Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just had a few questions. Year 6, 7, and 8, that's wide open.
That would be to negotiate with the...
Yeah, there's nothing set, no way to know nothing.
There's nothing set, no, we negotiate.
If he wants to negotiate, then they're in business.
Pardon?
If Joel wants to come back after 5 years, he sits down and starts over.
If Marty wants to, yes, we would.
You're not Joel, you're not going to do it.
We would, yeah, we would sit down, and that's something we have to work out if we're going to extend it.
That would be, both parties would need to be agreeable to that, so the city would need to agree to extend it for an extra 3 years, as well as the contractor would need to be agreeable to do that extension as well, and the fees for that would be negotiated at that time based on what they're providing.
The other question, it says, and I know these numbers, the $225,000 a year is what's going to cost us. Are we going to get a copy of the contract that he's going to have, so we know what he's doing up there?
Yeah, it's all based on RFP. So when the contract puts together, that would be disputed.
Not the personal information.
So
what the services all are. You probably got an end report out of it. What's going to be in his contract?
yeah, that's all included in the public document that was put out in the RFP. So I could go through the list. I'd want the document in front of me to be for sure, and we can provide that to council. But on a general perspective, the contractor will be overseeing our golf operations, excluding turf maintenance and excluding the food and beverage. So they would be booking all the tee times, taking all the fees in, booking tournaments, working through that, administering the back pro shop or back shop, providing lessons and programs, men's night, ladies' night, junior days, all the things that our golf services have provided in the past, including this last season, is what this contract would be responsible for, continuing that customer service level and continuing those programs for the next 5 years.
I've already been asked, who's going to run the concession out on the golf course?
What concession?
Electric card, I guess.
Oh, well, that was approved previously under the food and beverage contractor.
That's the restaurant people.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Harvest to
I'll
Home.
make sure before I...
Yeah. They are responsible for providing the golf cart, the beverage cart, and supplying the staff to run those beverage carts. And obviously there'll be some communication and working together with the contractors to ensure that our customer service is being adhered to.
So going a little further, if I can, before I take on Councilor Baker's question, the golf cart rental, is that fall under the Golf Pro?
Yes.
Okay. So
Sorry.
the golf cart rental will fall under the Pro as well. So the city won't have
Okay.
anything to do with that. That's part of that contract. So other than cutting grass,
Yes,
ensuring-
sorry, we would get the revenue for the golf cart rental,
Right,
but he
it
would
would
be
be
responsible for renting it out.
Right. Yeah, they do the paperwork.
Well, what kind of list of things that, well, who does what, just
So
before spring would be good.
I think the RFD, copy the RFD.
Yeah,
is
we
sent
can
out to the
provide
council, so because I know it was on the website, but I didn't look at it
Yeah.
either, so I think that would help clarify that. Councilor Torson.
Sorry, we're good. Sorry, I apologize. Thank you, Your Worship. Back in the game. So it's as we can see, there's only one proposal received, and it looks as though they scored very highly, which is great to see. So it's not like it would be terrible if we got one proposal and they scored like a 60, and that would not be good. But this one scored quite highly, so that's great to see. My only question is just around making sure everything's cool and on site. I know for council on a code of conduct policy in the past, there was some level of cooling off period, and I want to make sure, because we went through a public RFP process and everything that was done, plus this was previously someone employed by LFC, that we're all groovy on that side. I just would hate for the casual onlooker to look at this and think as though something's going on that's not going on, and that's really my concern, my only concern here. As far as I know, everything else is fantastic. The people are good. I have a good understanding of what the services that are being provided are and the prices. Yeah, it's too bad that it's over our budget, but at the same time, the prices came in at what they came in at, so we need someone to do this starting in the new year. So can someone provide me with some guidance, just making sure that cooling off type of thing, we're all good?
Yeah, I'll speak to that a little bit. Maybe Doug, you can step in and fill the gap if needed. I know you're not feeling well. And as you know, as one of the board members, we were very diligent on ensuring that any employee that would be potentially affected by this was not part of any conversation or any decision-making process through the last year and a half, I would say. We ensured that the individual was removed from any conversations that would result in the RFP. As far as I know, and we had inquired with lead services as to what the protocol would be, and that protocol was to ensure the individual wasn't a part of the discussion. As far as I know, there is no cooling off period for the individual or city or LGCC, Lloyd, I forget what, the corporation. Yeah, Lloyd Facility Corporation, thank you, Councillor. There's no cooling off period as a requirement to that, and we had talked to Lead Services with regards to that. So as far as I know, we've done our due diligence through this process and feel very confident that we followed protocol.
Would you like to add anything to this?
Yeah, excuse me. So there is no employee conduct that would prohibit this, and it was an open, transparent procurement process, and everybody that wanted the opportunity to bid, so we're on the side of this piece.
Thank you. I felt the same way about it all the way through. I just wanted to ensure that, you know, we had looked into the rules around this when we received one off RFP and it happened to be someone in that scenario. I can confirm, being in those meetings, that discussions regarding the future strategies where we were talking about outsourcing the Golf Pro position, that was done in an in-camera setting where individuals were removed from the meeting. So I can confirm and know that did happen. Yeah, I just wanted to ensure that we were on side on all policies, and it sounds as though we are, and great to hear. And I'm happy to know that our process worked out well, because that was my only concern is whether a casual onlooker sees it a certain way, that it's not. It's most definitely not, and there were specific steps taken to ensure to both protect the city and the individual from any potential conflict of interest.
Thank you. Yes, we are very cognizant of that through the process.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Fagin, anything to add, questions or comments?
No, some great conversation there. All my questions have been answered.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, I'll look for direction from City Council regarding 7.5.5. Councillor Buckingham.
The council approved the Golf Pro Shop Services contract for Leominster Golf and Curling Center to be awarded to Marty Wheaton for a 5-year term with an option to renew the contract for an additional 3 years at a cost of year 1, $225,000, year 2, $230,625, year 3, $236,400, and year 4, $242,300, year 5, $248,500. In addition to the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign and seal all necessary documents.
Seconder? Councillor Thorson. Any further discussion or comments? Councillor Fagin, anything to add before I call for the question?
Nothing further.
Thank you. With that, all in favor? Opposed? Councillor Fagin, how do you vote?
In favor.
Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Joel.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, we've covered off 7.6 to 7.7. I'll go on to 8. Any correspondence that was supposed to be dealt with at that time? Thank you, City Clerk. I'll choose to deal with that. Pass it off. Moving on to item number 9, my report is included in the council package this week. Basically, it's been a busy last month. Certainly, with some meetings, different items going on. From a perspective, I've carried it through to the end of this week for the report. I wanted to highlight the annual Here Comes Santa Claus celebration that was held in the city. The city played an active part in that this year. It was terrific. The streets were well packed. I believe that it was well attended, starting with the pancake breakfast right through to the fireworks. So, it was a great event. And certainly, again, the contribution from businesses, nonprofit organizations, volunteer organizations. It was just terrific to see the whole community come together for that as well. Additionally, there's not a heck of a lot else I can report on from that's not in the minutes or in those notes for various events. It's been a busy month, and certainly appreciate the invitations that we've received to attend a multiple organizations' Christmas gatherings and celebrations. One being the Lloyd Sexual Assault Center, celebrating 35 years in our community. It's a huge accomplishment to that organization. I would like to extend thanks for the work that they do to those that help support it, as well. It has received funding from FCSS, but many different organizations and companies step up to help with that organization as well. So, as usual, our city is well looked after by organizations and people willing to support those Anyone else? Yes, thank you. Would you like to speak to it? Okay. Well, I think we need to give a big shout out to our FCSS team. Patrick Lancaster heads that team up, and the Lloyd Needs Assessment was an award winner at provincial level, and certainly the Health Foundation, the Lloyd Regional Health Foundation, co-received that award. It spoke to the collaboration of two organizations and the efforts, and certainly want to recognize Patrick and his team and his efforts, because he had help, but Patrick was at every event that the city held, as well as additional events, trying to get people to take part in that survey, and it showed. We had over 2,100 people comment and provide input, which makes for a better survey. So hats off to Patrick and his team.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Anyone else have anything to add for the report? Those councillors? Councillor Fagman, anything to add? We still have the Councillor Fagman? Okay, we may have lost Councillor Fagman. All right, is there any other matters at this time that this council needs to address? If not, I will look for inquiries from the media.
Thank you, Your Worship. There will be a request for yourself and your elders, as well as Councillor Torson.
Councillor Torson. Thank you very much, Michael, and we wish you all the best in your career aspirations as you leave our city for the points further east. So just remember where oil comes from and who pays the bills. I'll take that political stance at this point when I have the opportunity. So.
2019.
See ya. Thank you very much. I'll look to council, a motion to go into recess. Seconder, Councillor Torson, all in favor? Carried.